Okay, good morning, everyone. Ooh, these do work well. Good morning, everyone. We're going to call this meeting to order. Today is Thursday, September 11th, 2025. It is 9:03 a.m., now 9:04 a.m. All council members are present, town manager, town clerk, town attorney. If you please rise for the invocation, followed by a moment of silence in remembrance of September 11th.
As we gather here today in service to Fort Myers Beach, let us pause in gratitude for this community, its residents, businesses, and all who visit our shores. May we lead with integrity and make decisions that support our continued rebuilding and reflect our commitment to fiscal responsibility. May our efforts strengthen the foundation of our town and honor the resilience that defines us. As we meet on this solemn date, please we pause to remember the lives lost on September 11th, 2001. We honor the courage of first responders, the strength of survivors, and the enduring spirit of unity that rose from that day. May their memory continue to inspire compassion, service, and resolve in our own community. Amen.
Please join me in a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the approval of the final agenda. We have a couple of changes. We have the addition of emergency ordinance number 25-16 and the removal of item number I, bid protest, under the agenda management or administrative agenda. Are there any other changes to the agenda?
Mr. Mayor, just for a point of order, where will the emergency go?
Well, that's up for discussion. Where would we
Okay.
like to put it? At the beginning or at the end?
Might as well do it at the beginning and get it over with.
Okay.
If I may add, push the button. If I may add for the record, the emergency ordinance is before you today at the request of the supervisor of elections.
Thank you. Okay, so you want to put it, should we put it just before the public hearings then, right after consent agenda? Is everybody okay with that placement, or would you like it before that?
Nope, that's fine.
This one. Okay. So we will place emergency ordinance 25-16 just after items removed from the consent agenda and just before the public hearings. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So move, Mayor.
Got a motion by Councilor King,
Second.
seconded by Councilor Woodson.
Mayor, that would be as amended for that item.
As amended for item I and the
Okay.
adding of the emergency
I'm sorry, I
ordinance.
missed that.
That's okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next is public comment. Madam Clerk?
I don't think I have anybody signed up.
All right. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak in public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Local achievements and recognitions. Councilor Safford.
Following up on yesterday, want to thank Mr. Mayor, Will, and your predecessors for getting us here today. It really didn't dawn on me how important this is for our staff. And they've moved. It's incredible. I know a lot of us have moved 4 or 5 times, but to move 11 or 12 times is just incredible. And it's great to have a place to call home, and I look forward to the meetings we have here.
Thank you. Councilor Woodson?
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. When I walked in here on Tuesday morning for my meeting with Will and looked in this area, and I thought, how in the world are we pulling this off for Wednesday morning? But we did. You did. The staff did. It's fantastic, and welcome.
Vice Mayor?
I would just associate my comments with the comments of Safford and Woodson on beautifully said.
Councilor King?
Yeah, I'll ditto all of that and just say how happy I am for the staff and how proud I am of all they've accomplished in almost the last 3 years, focusing on the residents with all the turmoil that went on in their work life and their personal life. So thank you.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate all those sentiments. It's nice to have a home for our staff and our residents now, and it's the next chapter of Fort Myers Beach, and hopefully this will be the last town hall we ever have to move into. All right, next we have presentations. We have an update for Mr. David Farmer. Come on up.
Good morning, Council, Mayor. Thank you very much for having us here today. It's also wonderful to be here at your inaugural meeting, and I am very pleased and excited for the town that you have this new facility for your staff and your residents to interact with government. So to remind you, we came and talked to you last year about what we do, and you engaged in a contract, and we'll be coming back to you in October with a much more substantial presentation. But this is based on just some new data I wanted to get in front of you, because your staff had informed us of some of the things that people were saying in some of the hearings and data they were presenting about how many hotels were here or not here, whatever. Well, thankfully you guys are of a size smaller than Los Angeles, and so we actually reached out to every single hotel and talked to every single landowner to get hard data on the ground. So we're going to present some of that to you today. Again, about myself, so Metro Forecasting, we only work for governments like you, so when we tell you something, we want you to know it's from our heart to your best interest. There is no other outside interests that are influencing anything we say or think. Let's skip this slide. I got a lot of data I want to get to, and we only have 20 minutes for this morning, but we have a really cool model, and we'll talk about that more in October. So like I said, we actually reached out to all the hotels, and we determined which ones are in fact open and their number of rooms, which ones are still renovating, and which ones are not never, but don't plan on reopening as they were ever again, probably likely as a future hotel. So we'd have that information, and we can spoke with them. And so here's the data. So as of May, you had about just under 1,200 single-family homes, about 5,500 condo units, and I'll talk about those in a minute. Those are units, not necessarily occupied units. We'll get to that. Hotel rooms. So you have 1,635 potential hotel rooms that exist on the island right now. But of those, and again, as of May, 1,484 were open for business and available for rent and use. So this conflicts, I believe, with some of your prior data from late last year, the Tourism Council or whatever, saying you had 1,100 or 1,000 or whatever. Well, you got more than that. And I think by season of next year, you're going to have those 1,635 online. So I'm not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I just want you to have the best information in front of you so you guys can make informed decisions. Commercial building, just under 300,000 existing.
Excuse me, just a quick question on the
Yeah.
hotels. One of the numbers that we kind of hear bantied about is that we've got roughly 60% of our hotel rooms open post-Ian. Is that a percentage that, based upon your recent research, that coincides with your data?
So I don't remember what you
ballpark?
had before.
Maybe
Maybe it was
next slide will show.
2,500 before. So maybe was it about 2,500 when? I can go back and look.
I think you have it on one of your slides. You have the 2685 or something.
Of what you had.
I have a question to follow up on that. Are you counting just the island, or are you counting Lover's Key and stuff that's just off the island?
Those are not in the town, right? Lover's Key's not in the town.
No.
No, we're only counting what's in the town.
What's on the island?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's generally not, I mean, if you want me to, I can look
No,
outside. It's not
no,
much
no,
work, but we
no.
are counting what's in your political boundary and only that, so,
Okay.
for these purposes. Great questions, though. So you have some vacant land, maybe you've heard you have some vacant land, 32 acres of vacant commercial, that's as of this moment. Some of that could be already entitled because of things that you've approved along the way, but today those are vacant and actually not developed.
Not that I want to correct you, but you said 32. You meant to say 23.
23, I apologize, yes, I got verbal dyslexia.
Big difference.
Thank you, yeah. Well, you have more than that of vacant land. The graphics don't do it justice, but we actually marked down, so we went through the data and had a nice talk with the property appraiser, and in fact, there's a code, if you know where to look inside the data, it tells us whether a structure has been compromised, and the secret code is 10. So if the structure is worth $10, it means it was severely damaged, and likely not going to come back as it was. However, we also then found in the data that you have condos that historically were assessed at 400, 500,000 that were sub 100,000. And so that actually influenced some of the data I'm going to talk about here in a minute about your occupancy and who actually lives here now and what we think is going to happen in the near future and more in the long term. So I've got two build-out scenarios for you. This first build-out, the easiest way I can say it is, you know what was here? It's coming back, okay? So if it was a house, it's a house. It might be a nicer house, but if it was a house, it's a house. It was a condo, it's a condo. If it was a hotel, it's a hotel. And then if it was vacant, when we use the surrounding properties, well, if it's surrounded by single family, we're going to say, well, that vacant lot probably is going to be a single family, even if it could be a duplex. It's very modest. But it's interesting to look at this. So we have a lift here. You have about 1,600 hotel rooms existing and potential build out of just under 3,000 hotel rooms. That's again based on building back as we were just pre-Ian, but adding the hotel and adding any new entitlements you guys have approved over the last few years. Let's see, moving down. Commercial building, we think it could have as much as close to 800,000 at build out. That depends a lot on what you approve or do not approve. We've made some guesstimations. It's our judgment call. It's no requirement on your part, hey, you have to approve this as commercial or that is that. We just used we have very good judgment. This is all we do. We do it all day long. We do it all over the state. And we are used to working in beach towns, so we think we understand what was likely to occur. Again, as your codes and zoning regulations change, these numbers could change significantly. For example, this is politely if you are aggressive in your build out or aggressive in what you approve. So we're not saying this is what's going to happen. We're not saying the other thing that's going to happen. It's probably going to be somewhere between these two different build outs. But instead of having only 3,000 here, about 3,100 hotel rooms. Not that you couldn't approve more. Of course you could approve more. More commercial space. We envision some of the parcels have a potential to come back as some really nice mixed use, like potentially, don't know what you have planned, maybe the old town hall, city hall, right? What's going to happen with that? I believe you still own that property. Is that true? I think you, as of my last records. Now, what are you going to do with it? I'm not saying you know or don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with that, but that is some potential for mixed use to happen in some of these areas.
David, before we move on,
Yeah.
do your numbers represent what has already been approved?
Yeah, to the best of our knowledge, yes. We've
Okay.
worked with your staff, so we've incorporated things that haven't been built yet. But if you've approved a project, then without getting specific, then we have marked that down and said, okay, that's what's going to go there, and that's not going to change in either scenario. It's only things that are vacant that aren't really spoken for. That this could go this way or this could go that way, so forth. All right, so. These come off as bullet points, like I'm telling you, but I'm not. Please take them really more as questions, all right? So we believe there's a desire to maintain that small town feel. I'm not saying you should feel that way or not feel that way, but that's sort of the sentiment that we read. And that there's concerns from existing residents and people that come and play here about keeping the views and corridors sort of as they've been, and that may or may not be true depending on what was improved and how tall things are and so forth. And then preserving the existing amenities and open spaces is obviously a challenge, right? Land's expensive, and kudos to you. I love that volleyball beach park that you guys established. That to me, that is a wonderful use of land that preserves the beach forever for public use. And I think I know I'm going way back, right, 15, 20 years, but I think that was really a genius of the beach to do that. All right, this is probably the biggest slide that I have for you in the whole deck. And again, this is not preaching. So you can sort of ask a question like, you're hungry, aren't you? That's not what we're doing, okay? These are what we'd like you to dig deep. And when we come back in October, we'd like you to share some of your thoughts about this slide. So that's a request from me to you. How do you feel? What do you think? And you might want to pick, like on the revenue approach, pick the first bullet point, and maybe on the resident approach, pick the third bullet point, or all of one side or all of another. But these really are questions, and not that they can't be one or the other, but we wanted to sort of pose these to you. Do these questions seem appropriate or inappropriate to you, or if you want to have more, employees living on the island, you're going to need more than likely rental, and I don't mean short-term rental. I don't see any other way for that really to occur unless you're going to do ADUs or something like that. But we need a mechanism to have employees live on the island, and there's no magic solution. I know you guys are working on some zoning codes and some things by right and not by right, but these are issues I think that need to be considered, and I think it's important to have a rationale for how you move forward. I'm not telling you what's good or bad, but as long as you have a reason. One of my first bosses out of college said, depending whatever you do, just make sure you have a reason why. If someone asks you why you did something, you don't know why, then you did something really bad. You need to know why you're doing something. And so I'm not preaching at you, but I'm requesting that you guys dig deep individually and as a council. What is it that you want to achieve? And we'll help you to hopefully help you guide you through and help you to show you how you can get to whatever your goals are. Let's hope that came out.
Just to comment on the residential approach, your number 2, medical care, personal care, barbers, et cetera. That also goes with the revenue approach, because a lot of our visitors were finding that we don't have those goods and services that they're accustomed to when they visit other towns.
Right.
So I wouldn't pigeonhole that just under the residential approach, because in order to attract visitors, you're going to need those nail salons, you're going to need those barbershops, you're going to need a medical facility. As it is right now, most of those goods and services are off island, which is creating more traffic.
Right.
So I wouldn't pigeonhole that just under the residential approach.
Well, it's under that side, because if you go revenue approach, then everything's condos and or everything's hotels, and
Right, but
4 months a
you
year
still
won't,
need.
won't support those businesses. You need more full-time people here to support them year-round. That's the point of the bullet.
Okay.
I don't disagree with you that visitors want to use those things. I used to spend a lot of time on the beach for many, many years, more on the north end of things. I've shopped in every shop down by the pier and so forth. And so I appreciate what you're saying, and I totally agree with you that visitors want those things, but some of those uses need to have a longer presence of people, patrons, to keep them alive. That was the purpose of it. But
I would just, one other comment to your, as you pose this paradigm for us is it's a bit more nuanced in terms of some of these questions depend on where you are on the island.
Sure,
So-
that's a
so
good
I think
point. North end versus
yeah.
south, yes, absolutely,
So
absolutely.
you've got to factor that into your calculation. It's not completely, it doesn't have this.
Right. At the south end of the island, if you put in a bunch of barbers, I'm not sure that would, or restaurants, that would really survive per se, right? You need more people. More of the tourism side is up this way, right? Is that what you're saying?
Except for right now, we would need more restaurants and barbers on the
Yeah.
south side, yes, but
Right,
yes,
right.
yeah, but, yeah.
It is fantastic how the beach is building back. Every time I come up here, I feel a positive energy of all the things that are going on, things that are changing, and maybe it seems slow motion, but it's happening, I think, at a pretty good pace, and I'm excited for the town. Okay, so let's bore you with some data here. So we took a look at last year's data, because it's the best data that we really have, and we looked at your single-family, multifamily units, and we looked at things by homesteading, right? Because if it's homesteaded, by definition, they have to live here full-time. Full-time meaning more than 180 days a year. Doesn't mean necessarily 12 months, but anything more than 180 is considered permanent by the census, and generally by Florida's laws and such. So it's interesting when we look at all the units, and I'll remind you, we had about 1,500 single-family homes. Only about a third of them are homesteaded. It means 2/3 are not homesteaded, and not saying that they're not rented full-time, but it's likely that they're probably used more on the short-term rental side of things. Now, if we go to here, we have the sort of single family. We have 696, I guess, total. What is this? Non-homesteaded units right now that are online. 4,400 multifamily units for a total of about 5,100. And so we're assuming, this is an assumption, but say, well, what if those are all rentals? Okay, and then now let's convert that to bedrooms, because this is something we learned from Holmes Beach when we were working with them 5 or 6 years ago, and they actually monitor by the bedroom, not by the unit, and it's that would be an interesting thing to consider for the town as well, to monitor bedrooms versus units, because they can have a big impact on seasonal residents coming. So we have about basically just under 11,000 potential bedrooms. And so the data actually tells us how many bedrooms are in houses and stuff. So we are estimating to a point, but we have a pretty good idea. Our data is not off by more than probably 5%. We then took and we said, okay, we have these bedrooms. That's a given number of 11,000. But if we assume then how many people are in each bedroom at a peak season kind of thing, right? Total peak. Think 4th of July. Think New Year's Eve, or the peak of spring break. So if you pick a number, and from my personal limited experience on this beach, I was a property owner for 8 years. I got to see a lot of things, who came and used our units and so forth. 1.5 people per bedroom is not a bad place to sort of guesstimate, right? So that would give you about 16,000 people in these units.
David, do you have any data from pre-Ian numbers as far as bedrooms are concerned?
I can get that. That's not a hard number. Yeah.
It'd be interesting to see that data compared to the 2025.
Sure.
I think that would give you a good idea of what the ratio of new construction homes, what their bedroom counts are going from, at least give you a percentage of what that increase is from what was there to what is currently being built back based on the 2025 numbers.
Right, and we'll take a look at that. And as much as I want to tell you that I'm a data guy and we're a data company, there's a lot I don't know. For example, so this is hypothetical, I lived in my condo, Ian hit, my condo went offline. I'm somewhere within a half mile of here. My condo went offline. Now I'm lived in the city of Fort Myers for 3 years, and now my condo just it's finishing up. So the question is, well, now I've lived somewhere 3 years. I've got new friends. I've got a new sort of pattern in my life. Maybe I'll just Airbnb that unit, or no, I'm going to come back and I'm going to actually homestead it. I don't know what's going to happen. I see a potential for change. I don't want to assume that everything's static, that everything pre-Ian that was homesteaded is going to remain homesteaded and those same ratios are going to hold. Things could change, and we're really excited from a nerdy data point of view exactly what is going to happen. I will tell you, as of this morning, and I mean literally on my drive up here, my guy pulled new data on your homesteads of your condos, and you've increased by 8. So, and that's a small trend, a small blip that your homestead versus non-homestead is increasing, but it's just one data point, and it's only over a 4-month period. But we want to monitor that because that's a very important, again, homestead more likely to be used on a full-time basis. Not that you can't rent out a room if you're homesteaded, of course you can, but it's not going to be likely the whole, crazy beach spring break thing. Cool.
Since we're on population,
Yeah.
and this is an inexact science, obviously, given the effects of Hurricane Ian, but, you hear prior to Ian, you hear, out of season, there was 5,000 to 10,000 people on the island at a time. During season, you hear these numbers of 50,000 to 60,000 people potentially on Fort Myers Beach during peak season. Have you gotten to the point where you can get a sense of, can you comment on those numbers yet, or is it premature?
You're reading my mind. I'm sort of heading there, other than I can't do daytime population. I can, but I'm going to pull numbers out of thin air because Lee-Tran, how many times it crossed the bridge, how many people are in it. But I have been here for many, many 4th of Julys, many, many New Year's Eves, and I have witnessed what you're talking about, where it took me 4 hours to get onto the island on one 4th of July. My wife needed something, I had to run to Publix. 15 minutes there and 4 hours back, but to fight the traffic of all the people trying to get on island that don't live here but were coming for the festivities and fireworks and such. So that daytime or nighttime visitor, I'm not sure what that count is, but so if you look at this today, so nothing new gets built ever. Even the things you've approved. If it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. But based on what we see today, based on homestead, non-homestead, and based on 1.5 visitors per bedroom of non-homesteaded units and a whole bunch of other words, and two people per hotel room, you're at 22,000. I now look at the build back, build out, and if we apply some very boring assumptions to that, you're at 30,000 in peak population. That's on the island without adding a single visitor from Lee County. So right now you're at 22 peak potential. Again, not excluding anyone from Lee-Tran or people crossing over to get on the beach for the day or whatever. So right now you're at 22,000. I don't see a way for you to prevent yourself from going to 30. And I haven't calculated because we just finished the aggressive build out and how that might turn out. But again, since it's more hotel and multifamily based, it's hard to say. So I don't know if those numbers are surprising to you or not. I'll lay another number on you because I can't remember if it's in the deck. I'm almost done with my talk here. So if we do our normal vanilla work, you should have about 3,900 full-time people here today. And I'm thinking, hopefully you're thinking, Dave, that sounds crazy, and you're right, because we went back into the data and not only pulled out those housing units that were the $10, so we know they're not occupied. It's impossible. They're not taxed right. Someone's assessed them, but we went back and looked at the condos that are less than 100,000. Last year or 3 years ago, they were at 400 or 500. Now they're at less than 100. That tells us something, that it's not valueless, but it's obviously not occupied if they're only assessed at that. And on my way, again, driving up here, Victor was telling me that there were units that just in January were assessed at $2,900 that today are assessed at $600,000. So I don't know if you've gotten your valuation yet back from the Lee County property appraiser, but I think you're likely to see a healthy bump from your taxable values from last year based on that. So these units are now coming back online. So we figure you're now at about 3,400 people. As of late last year, we think you were closer to 3,100 people, a full-time permanent population. We think now, or in the very, very near future, as these units have just come back online, you're going to have about 3,400 to 3,500 permanent population until more housing units are constructed. Does that make sense? Or I don't know if it's useful to you or not, but we dug deep to try to figure out some information that you can use as a base point of how do you feel now based on that population. And you're right, sir, the permanent population was, we believe, between 5,000 and 6,000 during the August months or whatever. I never did go back and calculate what the full peak was, but I'm estimating probably at least 25,000 people were on the island, plus then your beachgoers. That was the people actually living on the island and so forth. Again, it's a guesstimate based on professional judgment and spending many, many years on the beach. Tourism is your economic engine, and we need to balance those benefits. But again, what is the right balance? You're the elected official, not me. I'm not here to tell you or preach to you, but let's try to figure out what the target is, and then we can help you with some policies and such to sort of help get there with your other consultants as well. And of course, integrating some sustainable practices and energy efficient designs will also help the resiliency of the town being able to come back when the next storm inevitably hits. You have a lot of vacancies. This graphic does not do it justice. We went through and tagged all those homes that were $10, and it is frankly amazing, and it makes my stomach sick when I look at the pictures and the how many homes are damaged. It's just catastrophic. So you have 1,005 vacant parcels now that were 880 homes were. And either they're still there and they're so damaged they can't be lived in, or they've actually been demolished. And we also have another 626 parcels then with severely damaged structures on them. The sooner that we can get rid of those, the better things will look. Yes, sir?
David, those numbers, are those today or are those right after Hurricane Ian?
That was May. Say today, but we created these slides and the data was based as of the end of May.
Do you have the numbers? Did you ever have the ability to have the numbers post Ian? I mean, immediately after Ian? Let me just, we hear a lot, because it's tough to estimate because it was obviously chaos at that time, but we hear roughly a third of our structures on our island were destroyed as a result of Hurricane Ian. Based upon your research, does that seem like a reasonable number?
That does not sound like a crazy number to me, just based on the anecdotal evidence, because we believe more than half of your homes were damaged, severely damaged.
Yeah, I believe if memory serves me right, the number was north of 1,900 completely wiped off the face of the earth.
Right.
That didn't include substantially damaged homes, but
I think it'd be, at some point, just so people understand the gravity of what we went through, if you could find a number, just to give people a rough idea of I mean, people know it was impactful, but how significant the impact of Hurricane Ian was on Fort Myers?
In terms of housing units?
Housing and commercial, overall both.
Okay,
just to give
without
us-
leaving population out of it, well, so you're in luck. We also do the metropolitan, the MPO work, and so we did all the data in 2019. So I have 2019, 2020, and 2021 data that I can pull, and those numbers. That if you want 2019 data, I have that. It's literally free. I just have to look into the database and pull that number out of the permanent housing units we had, and we can do a quick comparison.
I just think it's helpful for when we try to explain to people what Fort Myers Beach went through. We've got a sort of a data point that we can point to, so that, again, it doesn't have to be exact, but just if a third of the structures on Fort Myers Beach were destroyed as a result of Hurricane Ian.
Is it structures or units? Because it's different, I gotta count buildings that have 50 units, that'll take more time, because we don't count structures, we count housing units, basically.
That's a great question. I'll
Well, you're
leave-
counting, I guess you could use parcels, because in here you're using vacant parcels.
Well, those vacant parcels are mostly homes, right?
Right, but that would usually mean there's one structure.
Yes, sir, yes, sir. Yeah, the single family is a piece of cake, the multifamily is a little more difficult between structures and units, right? We track the units because that's what people live, not that the structures aren't important, but that's not what we track. We track the actual, how many units are in each building.
That's a good question. I'll defer to your wisdom
Okay.
and nomenclature on that.
Well, I think it's an important number, not one for what you're getting to, Vice Mayor, but also for the rate of recovery,
Right.
you know, to be able to see the
Right.
trend and
Kind
how
of a
how it's coming
benchmark.
back. Yeah.
You were here, now you're here, and where are you going? Well, so I can tell you, since May, 400 condo units that were already existing have now come back online. Are they occupied? I'm sorry, I didn't knock on every door on the way
Right.
up here, but according to the
Property
latest
appraisers.
data from 7:45 this morning is showing us that 400 more units are now active on the beach that were damaged before, but are showing now as, went from $3,000 in January to $600,000 now. It means that they're occupiable.
And your 626 number here of severely damaged structures, is that based, you said that that was based on a $10 valuation from the property
Yeah,
appraisers?
Yes, sir, yes,
Site?
sir. Now, of the land always remains, has value.
Right, but
it's
just the structure.
Yeah. It's how you look at the data.
That's an interesting number to me. I'd like to see how that correlates with our data as far as what we have deemed as, are they still existing or are they gone? I mean, this doesn't necessarily say that those structures are still sitting there.
So, okay, I wasn't planning to get this deep. So the 1,000 vacant parcels means that either they're vacant before or something was there and it's been scraped away because now the structure value is zero.
That's the
right?
clarification that I wanted, that
Right.
this data isn't saying that there's a structure actually there, just that it's showing a $10 valuation
Right, the
doesn't mean.
626, well, the 626 says there is a structure there and it's damaged. Again, that was as of
That's
May.
interesting to me. I didn't realize we had that. That would shock me if that's accurate. Because that means there's 626 severely damaged homes that are still sitting there almost 3 years later, which
Or
is.
commercial, like Royal Scoop, I think it's just north
But
of here, right?
if you go down the side streets and back streets, you will see them. I mean, they've started to come down slowly but surely, but they're there.
No, I understand, but I mean, he just used an example of Royal Scoop. That's not a substantially damaged building. That's actually being rebuilt.
It's actually being rebuilt, yeah.
So the data, to me, seems like it's a little bit off. It may be showing it's only $10 because it hasn't come back online, but how are you verifying that that's a substantially damaged structure?
By the $10. So again, I was pretty sure when I looked at it, that Royal Scoop, the one right by the hardware store, I believe that was one of those $10 ones, but maybe I'm incorrect. Didn't the roof come off of that thing?
The blue building, are you talking about?
I think it's blue, yeah.
Yeah, that one's being built back. So
Right, yes, but if it was severely damaged, it was $10, and so it's not considered vacant, but it was severely damaged, and now I'm not disagreeing, they're rebuilding, but.
okay, so there's and I'm not trying to get into the weeds with you or beat you
No,
up over it.
yeah.
It just, to me, in the eyes of the federal government, severely damaged and substantially damaged are two different definitions. So
Okay.
I'm just trying to understand, when you say severely damaged, does that mean a roof,
Non-occupiable.
non-occupied? Okay.
Right,
Well, I think what he's saying is that it could be in any part of the process of being rebuilt, either they're just.
right,
pulling a
until
permit
it's
or the
brought
roof
online,
looks-
like those condos that were at 3,000 January, and today they're at 600,000. They were
Right.
obviously there in January, but they were so damaged that the value was more than $10, but completely suppressed from what it was, and now it's back, so.
And I would just add, this benchmark number that the mayor was referencing, I think is so important because we're making an argument right now to the Lee County School District that we need our elementary school back. And, you know, there's some that will say, oh, gosh, you know, you don't have the people back, you don't have this back. And clearly, there's a robust housing rebuild on Fort Myers Beach. But it'd be great to metric that so we can then demonstrate that, hey, we're not only we're back, but we're coming back even stronger. And to have that kind of data to be able to make our case would be very helpful.
I can help you with that part of it, but I'll tell you, if you want to talk about schools and school-age children, we do a lot of that too. One of the issues is we don't know what the demographics of the people moving back. Is it husbands and wives, or is it families? And that's what will influence that, obviously, right?
And that was part of our challenge with the school district, is that during COVID, we had a lot of parents move to Fort Myers Beach with kids who worked from home. And you would say, oh, gosh, that demographic normally wouldn't live in that kind of a home. But it was a unique dynamic here. We had folks who, both parents were working. very affluent, and they wanted to put their kids in elementary school, and they worked from home. They lived on the island. So it is tough, but you know, the school district has been somewhat challenging to convey this recovery to, and to have some data points might be helpful.
Yeah. So we'll do a 2019 count of units, because that's easy, and then we can compare it to what we have right now, and I can give you that juxtaposition on October 15th. Oh, it's next here. I did all that. Oh, so the last preaching thing here, and I think I've maybe said this to you before, but it's what I say to all of our clients. So vacant land is currency. It's freedom. It's flexibility. And not at some point, every parcel will be built on. But as you approve parcels, approve projects, recognize that there's less and less flexibility of how the future, or I'd say it's the future's converging, right? As we approve more projects, then the future becomes less and less uncertain about what's going to go there and what's going to go there. So be keeping that in mind as you're considering projects and whether you want to approve it or not. About, well, does that fit the context of the vision that the council has for the town? That makes sense? And so vacant land is currency. As you approve projects, or as homes get built, there's less and less doubt, less and less flexibility of what the future might hold. Again, that's not preaching down. That's just saying it's a perspective that I'd like to share with you. And that's it. We're working on completing the commercial analysis and generating the forecast. Your forecast is going to be different than any one I've done in my career. I've done a lot of them. But yours is not so much of how many units are going to get built, right? We have units that are already here, and when do they come online? It'll be, there's zero, that building has zero capacity, and then when it's open, I'll have 40 units come online, which is very unusual in the way we normally model things. So I'm going to have to do some professional work to help estimate how your population is going to change over the near future, and then as far as new construction, we'll help estimate how that's going to come online. So you have some guesstimations of how things might look. Okay? Looking forward to coming back in October. If anything else comes up that you'd like to see, Mr. Town Manager, please let me know. Happy to incorporate what you guys want into that analysis. And again, that'll be a baseline analysis, and we have some additional things we'll be coming back to you with as well. Thank you very much. Any other questions? Or?
Just when you come back, one of the things just to think about is you format the data that you're doing a great job of researching the data points, but if you format it, come back with some broader talking points. As you can tell from this conversation, we spend a lot of time making the case about Fort Myers Beach to outside entities, a variety of different entities, both on the commercial side, on the school side, on just in communication with our constituents, to be able to convey accurately what the impact of Hurricane Ian was, and A, and B, this is how far we've come with respect to our recovery. Not necessarily 235 versus 237, but hey, a third of our homes were destroyed. We're 90%. Some nice percentages that we could use as talkers that would be accurate, that helps to explain in lay terms some general themes of where we're going and where we still need to have some work. Just broader, in lay sort of dynamics, convey those talkers in ways that could be informative to the public.
Okay, well, I'll work on a graphic. As you're talking, I have something in mind, a way to show existing units, but they're showing a different occupancy and showing how things have changed, say, since pre-Ian, and then how things are coming back. Yeah, we can do that.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day.
Forgetting to push the button. Thank you, David. All right, next we have Advisory Committee items and report. I believe Sam is here from the Anchorage Advisory Committee. Pick a side, whatever side you want.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and Council. Sam Lurie, the Vice Chairman of the Anchorage Advisory Committee. I have a brief prepared statement to read. I respectfully ask that $1,577.36 left over from our Cruisers Appreciation Day on April 27, 2025, be included in the town's 2026 fiscal year budget for the Anchorage Advisory Committee to use in promoting the mooring field. Those dollars were contributed by a number of event sponsors, and we would like to use them for future events. We also request that council provide us with an additional $500 to use towards our events promoting the mooring field. This amount of just over $2,000 will ensure our ability to host an event in 2026 as we did this year. We have tentatively set a date for our cruisers, or our next Cruisers Appreciation Day for April 12th, 2026. It has been placed on the official town calendar as well as the calendar the chamber maintains. We will come before the council on November 3rd with our initial plan and our request for your approval of the event in a manner similar to how it was run this year. That's the end of the prepared statement. I just wanted to make a couple comments. It's my understanding that $1,577.36, that was a surplus from this year. And the reason we're asking for an additional $500 in the budget, not necessarily to be spent, is that if all else fails, if it's totally rained out, we have no contributors, it will be a $2,000 event. However, this year, we had members of the committee that contributed, we had vendors and businesses contribute, we had gifts from all over the island contributed, Beach Talk Radio contributed money, and they also were on site with the PA system, and Ed Ryan emceed the whole event. So we don't anticipate having to use that money, but we want to ask for it now in case of that event that we will be covered. The other thing I wanted to, most of you attended the event, and I've been to 10 of them, and this was head and shoulders above any of them. It was a great event. We went from hot dogs and hamburgers to a gourmet meal at Snug Harbor. We went from under the bridge, you know, in a dirty parking lot to Bayside, and we had no less than 24 displays, environmental and marine related, that were put together by Jennifer Rusk. She most organized a lot of that, and Chris King and the rest of the committee did a great job organizing it. So that's why we're asking for that. And I did have a couple other comments. The new dinghy is installed. I was there yesterday. The only thing they're doing is extending the pilings, but we wanted to thank you for that. And Curtis, Harbor Master Curtis Ludwig, and Bobby supervised the installation of that. And if you were there before this week, it was rickety, there were hinges, there were all kinds of issues with it. And with the new one, you'll find out it's totally safe, it's
Sam,
state-of-the-art.
you mean the dinghy dock, right?
What did I say?
New dinghy, yeah.
Oh, new dinghy dock.
Yeah, all right. That's okay.
And we continue to get rave reviews for Curtis and his staff, and want to thank the vice mayor for being a good liaison. He's communicating everything we discuss at the meetings properly to the council. Any questions, comments?
Well, I think you sold yourself short by not including yourself in that. You did a lot of groundwork in getting sponsors on board for that as well.
Yes, and Chris did an excellent job organizing everybody. All of us went around. We got a lot of sponsors. And like I said, I don't anticipate, this is a surplus. We're just asking you to roll over the $1,577. That's a surplus after we paid all the bills of this. So just kind of a emergency bailout. If we need it, we're hoping we don't need it. We hope we add more to the surplus this year also.
Will, can you add the request to make sure it gets in the hands of Joe before our 5 o'clock discussion tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, no issues.
I would say, Mr. Mayor, knowing the Anchorage Advisory Committee and the members and the efforts that they have put forth thus far, Joe will sleep well tonight, because I doubt we'll ever have to use that $500, because these folks have done an amazing job.
Could I ask a clarification point with the town attorney? Since my wife is the chair of the committee, would I be allowed to vote on that motion because it involves money, or?
Well, at this point, we're not really voting on it.
No, I was just for
For
down the
later
road.
today. Yeah, I don't think that's a problem, because
Okay.
when they did come before you for the first, to get permission, she was in her representative capacity of the committee, not as an individual. And any monies that are allocated to the committee
Okay.
as a whole. She has no special benefit or gain from it.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Sam?
Great, thanks
Thank
for
you,
all
sir.
your support.
All right, next we have the approval of the minutes. We've got the town council minutes from August 4th, 2025, the town council meeting from August 18th, 2025, and the management and planning session from August 7th, 2025. Is there a motion to approve the minutes or any changes?
I'll go ahead and move the approval of the minutes.
A motion by Counselor King,
I'll second.
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next, we have the consent agenda. There are 3 items on it, all pertaining to local states of emergency. The first one is Resolution 25-252 through 25-255 for the declaration or the extension of local emergency for the tropical storm Debbie. The second is Resolution 25-258 through 25-261 for the extension of local emergency for Hurricane Helene. And the final one is Resolution 25-265 through 25-268 for the extension of local emergency for Hurricane Milton. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved, Mayor.
All right.
Second.
Motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, that motion carries unanimously. Next is the items removed from consent agenda, which we do not have, which brings us to the emergency ordinance number 25-16. This is an emergency ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, identifying a qualifying period for the filing of vacancies which may result from the special recall election of council members John R. King and Karen Woodson as scheduled for the 4th day of November 2025 by the Honorable J. Frank Porter, Chief Judge of the 20th Judicial Circuit in and for Lee County, Florida, pursuant to Section 100.364, Number 4, Florida statutes, making a finding of emergency, providing for non-codification severability and an effective date and an ending date. Nancy?
Real quick, Madam Clerk, do we have I'm sorry. Do we have hard copies? I think, if we could disseminate those, because they're not in our packet, I don't think.
They're buried in Civic somewhere.
Okay, so council, as I indicated earlier in this morning's meeting, as you were setting your agenda, the request, excuse me, for an emergency ordinance did come to the town by virtue of the supervisor of elections. In this ordinance, basically, the whereas clauses follow the procedures that are applicable in Florida law regarding recall elections. This is an area of law that has been preempted from municipalities in order to provide a uniform process statewide. And as we've gone through the process, many of you are aware of the various steps, we came to the point where there was a certification from the supervisor of elections that sufficient number of petitions had been received. At that point, the town clerk had the obligation to notify our 2 council members who are the subject of the recall that they had 5 days in order to submit a voluntary written resignation from their positions. The 5 days expired and no written resignations were received. At that point, the statute provides that, and I'm quoting from section 100.361(4), in the absence of a resignation, the chief judge of the judicial circuit where the municipality is located shall fix a day for the holding of the recall election for the removal of those not resigning. There's also a deadline within that statutory section that says that the election shall be held no more than 30 days, no less than 30 days, or no more than 60 days after the expiration of the 5-day period. And it should be at the same time as a general or special election within that period. But if there is not one, then the judge shall call a special recall election to be held within that 30 and 60-day period. So yesterday, there was a order issued by the Honorable J. Frank Porter, who is our chief judge of our judicial circuit, at the request of the supervisor of elections, indicating that, no resignations had been received. And so in accordance with the authority that is vested in the chief judge by Florida statutes, he did order that the special recall election be held on Tuesday, November the 4th of 2025. At this point, then, the statute does require that, and I want to quote, the filling of the, any possible vacancies should occur at the same election, at the same time that the recall election is considered. However, the town currently, in our existing charter and in our ordinances, we do not have a qualifying date for any recall elections. Specifically, also, I want to cite that Section 101.75 paren 3 of Florida statute says that it is the town council by ordinance that can establish what qualifying dates are. So the supervisor of elections finds himself in a situation where he is to move forward based on the recall statute. However, he does need to have qualifying dates established by the town council in order for him to administer the recall election. So based on the date that was established by the chief judge, the qualifying period that has been requested by the supervisor is in Section 3 of the ordinance, and I'm just going to read it for the record. The qualifying period for the special recall election to be held on November the 4th, 2025, shall open on Monday, September 15th at 9 a.m., and will close at 5 p.m. on Tuesday, September 16th. The reason it is Monday and not immediate is because there is an opportunity to qualify to be placed on the ballot by petition. And there needs to be a period of time for the collection of those petitions from any individual who is interested in serving in the event a recall election did result in some vacancies. So that is the request that is before you. This is an emergency ordinance. Unlike your other ordinances, this ordinance would basically terminate on day 61. It is not codified. It would not apply to any other recall elections that may or should occur, not should, but may occur in the future. And I'm available for questions.
So the supervisor of elections cannot set the qualifying date. That has to come from outside his office. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And in conversations with the supervisor of election, is it the reason that there's such a short and quick potential qualifying dates is because of his requirement by state statute to meet the overseas ballot requirement, which would be the 20th of this month?
That is correct.
Okay. So I'll have it at this point, but questions for Nancy? Scott, any questions?
Is the supervisor of election mandating that we do this?
He has not mandated, he doesn't have the authority to mandate that of us. I'm not aware of any authority,
I've heard a
such
lot of shoulds
authority.
and coulds and woulds, but
Yes.
is this a mandate?
No, however, he is mandated by the chief judge to hold the election. And then the statute does say that if the election is to be held, candidates to succeed them by unexpired terms shall be voted at the same election. So he really can't do it unless he has some qualifying dates. So we're kind of in an interesting situation.
That was my first question.
If I could follow up on that question, Madam Town Attorney, in his order, did the Honorable J. Frank Porter specifically direct the town to create an ordinance identifying a qualifying period for a special recall election?
He did not. He did not, and interestingly, in the Florida statutes itself, there are several subsections to, regarding the filling of the, of any potential vacancy. The first part, which is 6A, applies to candidates in jurisdictions that have at-large elections, which is what the town of Fort Myers Beach has. Subsection B talks about the possible recall election where there are single-member districts. And in subsection B, the statute does provide that the qualifying period shall be established, for this section, shall be established by the chief judge of the judicial circuit after consultation with the clerk. So in all likelihood, it may be a oversight on the part of the legislative drafting that omitted that opportunity for the chief judge to also set the qualifying period in the event that the municipality has at-large elections, which is what we have here. So we have a statute that is not crystal clear on it. There is a counter-argument to what I just said, which would basically be that if the legislature had intended the judge to have that authority to assign the qualifying period, taking that right away from a local government, they would have added that in there. So we don't know what transpired when this statute was put together.
So we have a poorly drafted statute.
There's the understatement of the new millennium.
Well, it could be
Without a doubt.
characterized that way, yes.
So we have a poorly drafted statute that's been hijacked
Amen.
procedurally by some folks utilizing defamation, slander, and/or innuendo. And we have a judge. I originally, when I saw this, it was presented to me, I thought to myself, you know, we're, as John Adams said, we're a nation of laws, not of men, and want to certainly respect the judge's order. But then I find out the judge never ordered the town to do what we're doing here today. The statute's drafted poorly. It's so poorly drafted that it's being exploited by folks who are not following the intent of the statute. I served in the state legislature in Indiana. I've drafted laws. I've never seen a statute that's been so poorly drafted and also easily exploited by others for nefarious purposes. This gives me great pause. And I would ask the town attorney, what would happen if the town council did not pass this emergency resolution or ordinance today?
So a decision to not adopt the emergency ordinance is clearly one within your discretion. What would transpire, I could only speculate. I think that at that point, if I were the supervisor of elections, which I am not, and I am not really suggesting that he do this, but I would probably be going back to the chief judge and asking for some direction. There may be some other legal avenues that he has in order to get the information and what he needs to do in order to fulfill his statutory responsibilities.
Could you, Madam Attorney, and I know you've had a lot on your plate over the last few weeks, but could you, just for the public's sake, illustrate or elucidate the separate process that's occurring? Because I think it gets a bit confusing. We have a sort of a procedural exercise that we're going through here today, but there's a separate judge that has a proceeding that we're waiting on a ruling on that's unrelated to this. I don't want to say unrelated, but different from this. Could you help the public understand sort of this bifurcated process?
So the town is not a party to that litigation. I'm probably not in a good position to comment.
I don't mean editorialize,
On
I just
that-
procedurally give us an idea of what's
Procedurally,
happening.
it is a challenge to the recall petition process itself. And that is pending right now, litigation. That is separate from the election procedures that have required guidance and direction from the chief judge. So there are two separate judges that have these matters before them, distinct matters, not the same questions.
So I gotta, this is a really, it's a wicked pickle, right? It is as I think the Vice Mayor so graciously said, it is a poorly written statute that people are exercising. Whether you agree with it or not, it is what it is. We had no control over that process. There's a lot of what ifs here to me. What if this doesn't pass? What happens? What if it does pass and nobody qualifies? What happens? What if they don't get recalled? Then nothing happens. What if the judge throws out whatever potential case is out? There's a lot of what ifs on both sides. For me, I'm trying to look at this as, although I 100% disagree with the process and how we got here, and I do not think that either one of the members have done anything wrong in the Sunshine Law, we are where we're at, whether you like the process or not. In November, when they were elected in 2022, a process was followed. In 2026, there will be another process to follow. But because of this poorly drafted state statute, it has provided a process in which people can challenge people for no other reason than they don't like their vote, or they don't like them, or they don't like whatever. To me, that is extremely flawed, and I will do everything I can through what I can do in lobbying at the state to make sure this gets changed for the future. However, that doesn't change where we're at. We're being asked by the supervisor of election because he has no path forward to be able to set the dates. Do we certainly wish that the judge would have done it? Absolutely. Are we in no requirement to pass it or not pass it? Absolutely. To me, I'm solely trying to look at this as a process, and are we following the proper process? And by voting on it one way or another, we can go back and forth with what ifs, and how I vote on it, whether I vote for it or against it, is not how I feel one way or another towards John or Karen in what happens throughout this process. My hope is that it gets thrown out. My hope is that it doesn't go anywhere. I hope that this is just an exercise that nobody ever has to go through again. But it's where we're at. And for me, out of courtesy to the supervisor of elections, I would support setting these dates. Again, I want to publicly state that I've supported both John and Karen privately and publicly, and I will continue all the way through this process. I'm not in favor of it, but out of public courtesy, we're at a position as how are we going to be looked at as a council? And I don't, despite what's been reported, I don't find this as moving it forward. I find it as doing our jobs. And as much as I hate to do it for John and Karen's sake, I will have to support this ordinance out of just following the due process. And it really bothers me that I have to say that, but that's the reason I will support this emergency ordinance today.
Point of order.
Yes, sir.
Nancy, the supervisor of elections does have the ability to go back to the chief judge and ask for this to be done, correct? So there is still an avenue for that.
I hesitate because I don't represent the supervisor of elections. However, it would appear that, yeah, he would most likely go back because the judge has directed that he conduct the election. And I say that because the election function, by contract, we have given that duty and responsibility to the supervisor of elections. I don't know if, Amy, you want to comment on, Amy doesn't do the municipal elections. That sometimes transpires in other municipalities.
And just to be clear, John, I wasn't saying that he doesn't potentially have an avenue. I'm just saying he can't, his office specifically can't set the dates.
No,
I just want to make sure that was clear.
no, I wasn't trying to.
I would like to go on record. This whole recall is a sham. It's been perpetuated by lies, deceit. Everybody knows it. The petitions that were signed really should be thrown out because they were gathered under false pretense. They used the Seagate vote as the bait. I have witnesses that will testify to that in court. There's no mention of the 3 allegations that are total lies in and of themselves. I'm sitting here with this paper that I'm supposed to sign that is a conflict of interest if I vote for this. I don't have a conflict of interest in voting. I have quite the contrary. I have a vested interest in voting no to this, and I will stand by that. I will not stand down.
Thank you, Karen. I will also comment on this because I thought it was unusual to see that this already had been drawn up, that I had a conflict of interest predetermined without my say-so. So I think I'm with you. Thank you, Karen.
So if I can clarify for the record, the obligation to vote or not vote in the event of a voting conflict, that is one that you as individual council members should make. Maybe that got a little bit ahead of the skis, but it just, the appearance, it looked like it. However, you are the final decision maker as to whether or not a conflict exists or not. And if you believe that one does not exist, it is in your authority to so state and so act.
I don't want to get overly dramatic, but I have Al Pacino in the back of my mind in a movie where he was an attorney and he was called out of order, and he told the judge was out of order and the whole damn thing is out of order, and I think that's pretty much sums up this whole process to me.
Vice Mayor, looks like you're leaning in.
Yeah, I just want to just add, when I came in this morning, I was under the impression, and maybe, or I actually talked to the attorney on the way in this morning, she was driving in. I was under the impression initially, because I want to say, I support the rule of law. And I was under the impression that the Honorable Judge Frank Porter was directing the town council to, specifically directed the town council to create an ordinance identifying a qualifying period. And as painful as it was going to be, I wanted to respect that process, but that's not what happened. We've got a situation here where there's a mess because the legislature poorly drafted a bill. It's been exploited by folks with nefarious purposes, and they're asking us now to clean up the mess, and I can't be a party to it. I can't ethically be a party to cleaning up a mess that's so devious that it's quite frankly it's embarrassing for the town, and I'm embarrassed for the process. So I can't support this today.
Scott, any other questions?
No, I'm just going to lay out a quote by John Stuart Mill. Bad men need nothing more to compass their ends than good men should look on and do nothing. If something's poorly written, and I'm not putting my name on this, until a judge mandates me to do this, and I would, Mr. Vice Mayor, I was under the same thought process that we were mandated to do this. So I had every intention of, hey, we're asked to keep the ball moving. It's mandated. I heard, as our town attorney said, should, would, could. There's no should, could. There's no we have to do this. I want to kick this back up. If the law's not written correctly, and they need our guidance, until I'm mandated, I'm not voting on this.
All very good points. They are, I think we're all in agreement that this is a hot mess that was not created by anyone sitting up here, and it puts us in a very, very horrible spot. And I think had it not had to come to the council for an emergency ordinance, that it would have gone a different direction. But this is where we're at. This is the option that we were left with. But to your point, there's still an option to vote yes, and there's still an option to vote no. And although I don't support it, I'm going to vote to support it simply just because, although again, I'll reiterate, I don't agree with the process, I don't agree with how it got here, I don't agree with the reasonings, I don't agree with any of it, but I do respect the process, and obviously I'm going to be in the minority, and I completely respect that.
So just to add a point, I don't think this is a process. This is like, it seems to me that they're trying to make us create a process. There's not a process
when I-
here.
when I-
We can't, just let me finish, sir. There's never been a precedent for this. If there had been precedents and, hey, this, we go from point A to point B to point C, you follow this path. Well, we're at point A, point B, and there is no point C, and they're trying to make us create a point C to go forward. I'm not creating a new path. I'm not creating that path until somebody tells me I have to create that path, or there's a precedent behind this, then I'm voting no. I'm not going over my skis.
Respectfully, there has been precedent to this, as recently as when Commissioner Mann passed away. It went through the same exact process at the county level for that election. May not have been a recall election, but it was, there, and maybe Nancy, you could speak to it more. My understanding is there were two precedents as far as the sitting board setting the qualifying dates. Obviously, Mr. Mann's was a different situation, but
Yes, and there is a Florida statute, which I mentioned earlier, the 101 point, I think it was 171, that does vest the responsibility in the town council to set the qualifying dates. So you have that authority under one section of the statute. It is not mandated by the chief judge in at-large districts, or that's the wrong word, in at-large elections. In some jurisdictions, your existing code may already have established qualifying periods for recall elections. And in that situation, then, there would not be a problem with the state statute, because at that point, if you had it in your ordinance already, then that process would continue on, but you do not have that. Your last ordinance that you adopted, the section that I was referring to is 101.75, paren 3. The last ordinance that you adopted basically is ordinance 24-12. Wait a minute. Yes, but -12, and in that ordinance, what you approved was in accordance with that statutory section that I cited, 101.753, that you affirm that the candidate qualifying period shall be from noon of the 71st day to noon of the 67th day prior to the August 2024 primaries. So you did not establish a qualifying period by ordinance in 24-12, so it doesn't exist. If you had something that was general, in all recall elections, the qualifying period shall be, if you had something like that in your code, then there wouldn't really be an ambiguity in the state statute. Because the chief judge would order the special recall election, and it would default back to your existing code and your charter, but there's nothing there. That's why it is an emergency ordinance today to allow that process.
all right. Very much a hot mess. All right. Well, is there any further discussion, or is there a motion on emergency ordinance 25-16? I'm not going to make the motion because I know I'm going to be on the losing. I mean, I'll make it if that moves it along, but I'll make a motion to approve 25-16 emergency ordinance. Is there a second? Hearing no second, that motion fails. Is there a motion for emergency ordinance number 25-16?
So moved.
A motion by Counselor Safford,
A motion to,
Deny.
okay, or not adopt.
Not adopt.
okay.
Parliamentary inquiry, Madam Attorney, is that necessary?
Yes.
Okay, very good.
And by the way, this is a legislative matter, so we didn't go through our normal swearing in and all that. We do require public comment.
Oh, you want to do that before we, or do
Yes,
we?
before you vote.
Okay, but do we want to finish the motion before we take public comment, or?
It's at your discretion, yeah.
All right, before we move on, public comment. Does anyone here wish to speak in public comment on emergency ordinance 25-16? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. There is a motion on the floor by Counselor Safford to deny ordinance 25-16?
Or not approve.
Or not approve?
Not approve, not adopt.
Not approved, not adopt.
Not approve, not adopt. Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Got a motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt. Any further discussion? Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Counselor King?
I may be recalled for this, but I will vote no, or yeah, aye. I will support it. Sorry.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
And I am no. Motion carries 4-1. All right, next, that brings us to our public hearings. Does anyone need a comfort break before we get into this?
Yes.
Where is the, oh, there we go.
Right straight back.
Make sure you lock the door.
Right straight back. All right, we will, what time is it? 10:19. We will come back at 10:30, 10:35.
Done.
It's done.
All right, we'll call this meeting back to order. It is 10:35. We are now moving on to our public hearings. We have 2 public hearings. The next 2 items on our agenda are public hearings for review for various land use requests. For the benefit of the public, please be aware that these items are quasi-judicial in nature. Our attorney will further explain.
Thank you, Mayor. The 2 items that we have, the first one will be a rezoning, and the second one is a request for approval of a special exception. So these 2 agenda items are quasi-judicial in nature, and this requires that your public hearing comply with procedural requirements that have been established in Florida law and in our land development code. Your quasi-judicial proceedings are less formal than proceedings before circuit court, but they are more formal than the remainder of our meeting. And we do need to follow the basic standards of due process that requires certain notices, the application of the correct standards to the application, and that your decisions are made on competent substantial evidence, either presented to you in written documents or through oral testimony. Your responsibility today is to evaluate the testimony and information that is provided to you, draw a conclusion regarding whether the criteria in the Land Development Code or in state law has been satisfied. So pure speculation or opinion that is not based on competent facts cannot legally be considered by you in evaluating an agenda item. Testimony by professionals who have been qualified as experts in a particular area has been considered competent evidence by Florida courts, as well as testimony by neighbors and residents who have fact-based information such as minutes, surveys, engineering reports, or whether their testimony is based on their personal knowledge and belief. Your decision is final. If a decision of approval is not obtained, a different motion could be made to continue the item, to move it forward. Members of the public, if you intend to speak, please keep this in mind. And when you come forward, please state your name clearly for the record and whether or not you have been sworn in and your qualifications or your interest in the matter. So for purposes of efficiency, before we begin these 2 public hearings, I would like to go ahead and ask the town clerk whether the 2 items have been properly noticed pursuant to our land development code.
Yes, they have been.
And does any of the town council members have a conflict of interest for either of these 2 agenda items that would prohibit you from voting on them? If you could please disclose that at this time so we can make sure that we do have a quorum moving forward on those 2 items.
Counselor Safford?
I do not.
Counselor Woodson?
None.
Vice Mayor Erholt?
None.
Counselor King?
None.
And I do not have none as well.
So at this time, if there is anyone in the audience, including staff, that would like to provide testimony regarding any of these 2 quasi-judicial items, if you would please stand, raise your right hand, and be sworn in by the town clerk.
Do you solemnly swear and affirm that the testimony that you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, all parties have been sworn.
Okay, Mayor.
All right. The first quasi-judicial agenda item is a first reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 25. The first quasi-judicial agenda item is the first reading and public hearing on proposed ordinance 25-15. If approved at first reading, a second reading and final adoption hearing will be scheduled for October 6th, 2025 at 9 a.m. or at another time identified by town council. This is an ordinance of the town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions, denying an application to rezone property located at 138-140 Delmar Avenue, generally identified as strap number 19-46-24-W3-0100B.0150, Fort Myers Beach, from residential conservation to residential plan development to allow construction of a 2-story duplex above flood elevation and a deviation from section 34-638D2 of the Land Development Code to allow a porch and stoop to encroach 15 feet into the 25-foot street setback where a maximum encroachment of 10 feet is permitted for accessory uses, providing for clarification as necessary, providing for conflicts of law, scrivener's errors, severability, and providing for an effective date. If any town council member has had any ex parte communication to disclose, Please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Counselor King?
None that I recall.
Vice Mayor Hall?
Same.
Counselor Woodson?
None that I recall.
Counselor Safford?
I've had none.
And I do not have any as well. Jason Green has been qualified as an expert already by this town council based on his education and experience, has been accepted as an expert in the field of land use, planning, and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any other individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? Seeing none. Has the property owner or applicant seen a copy of the agenda backup materials from staff? Yes, they have. Okay. Go ahead.
Hey, good morning. Jason Green, Community Development. Pinch hitting for Judith on this one a little bit, so I'll go through this and I'll try to be brief. As you mentioned, 138, 140 Delmar Avenue is a rezoning to residential plan development. The reason why we're here for an RPD, residential plan development rezoning, is because while it's a replacement of a duplex, the comprehensive plan and land development code essentially require this process if you're going to increase the square footage of rooms or square footage of the units. So that's why we have to go through this process. Something we'll talk about with the land development codes in the comp plan that you look for the future one to see if we still want to do that. As you mentioned, there is a deviation to basically reduce by 5 feet the front setback for front porch and stairs. So the property is zoned residential conservation, RC. It's approximately 4,400 square feet of a lot size. According to Lee County property appraiser information, there was previously a structure of approximately 884 square feet, which was 2 dwelling units and appeared to have been built in 1954. The applicant information and the property appraiser confirmed those 2 units. And so therefore, they're allowed under your codes either a post-disaster build back or this process, as I mentioned before.
So Jason, before you move on,
Yes.
you said something there that I think I knew, but it's the first time I've really actually heard somebody say it.
Oh.
The point that they're having to go through this process is simply because they're increasing square footage.
Correct. So there's a policy about build back and in the comp plan. And there's a very strange and nuanced sentence in one of those policies that allow for the square footage to be increased if you go through this process and under a couple other circumstances. So it's a unique and strange way to do it, but it's the way it's been in the comp plan for 20 plus years. We can discuss that. There's
Yeah,
other ways to
another
do
day.
it, whether it's special exception or other avenues. I think there's other probably more efficient ways to do it than a rezoning.
Makes sense.
So what you end up having is a lot of your neighborhoods are consistently zoned like RC or RS. You have these kind of dots of RPD in the middle of them now after this type of process. And you're going to see more of these probably anyway, just the nature of the rebuild as we go. And you already have done several of these.
All right, thanks, Jason.
Yes, sir.
Could I
Absolutely.
add to that, Mr. Mayor? Jason, this item and the next item, you've been around, but you're now full court press again. We created a process almost a year ago where we delineated certain categories of items where the LPA could, if they approve something unanimously, it would not have to come to this additional step where these poor folks have to sit and go through all this.
Sure.
It was to create expediency for our residents and for those applicants, but also to just from a time management standpoint for the council, it seems to have worked very well. At that time, we've also talked about looking for ways to add to that list.
Yes.
And so just as we think about, and as you think about things as we go forward, if there are things that we can add to that LPA list, that again, with a unanimous vote, and again, the opportunity for up to 2 weeks where somebody could ask for something to come to council, I think it's a really, really effective process. So think about things policy-wise, to the mayor's point, another day, another time.
Sure.
But begin to think about some things to add to that list that might make sense.
And that's why I mentioned that. I mean, this process, it's not adding to the list, but you would change the process to
I got you.
achieve this thing.
But maybe
And
the
you can
next
do
one,
that.
and others might be added to the list.
For
Just-
example, if you change it to a special exception and it's about neighborhood compatibility, then that would then fall under that process potentially also. So it doubles the speed, frankly, actually. So
Very good, thank you.
yes, sir. In the staff report, we provide that history and analysis of that comprehensive plan policy. I won't go into all the minutia of that language in there. We provide that essentially it's a replacement of what was there as a duplex. Granted, it is a little bit bigger. The proposed structure will be kind of side-by-side units. There'll be 2 living floors on, I think in your packet is the plans for that. It is an increase to approximately 3,000 square feet total. It's about 1,500 square feet each floor. And then again, the front porch and the stairs with needing the deviation from that. And again, also, this process does allow that deviation versus a variance, which has some legal issues. So it is a benefit to them at this point for this process, but again, we can change some of that later. The staff report also includes your findings and conclusions. Our findings and conclusions based on Land Development Code Section 3485B and C and 34216-2. Those are set forth the requirements for this request. Those are mostly found all to the positive. And let me skip to this. And based on those findings, staff finds that the RPD amendment meets the criteria set forth in those sections I just mentioned and recommend approval with conditions of DCI 2025-0181. And there's 3 conditions that were provided. If you have any questions on that or want me to go into more details, I'd be happy to.
Just a quick question. In the title, it's a little confusing. It says it's encroaching. This has always been an issue of how it's worded. It's really only
Sure.
5 feet, right? It's not really
Yeah,
15
so-
feet?
Right. It's you're allowed to go, yes, 10 feet, and they want to do 15 feet. So it's 5 additional feet.
Yeah, but in the way it reads, it
Yes.
doesn't read that way. It's always been backwards to me why it's
And that's the way
worded
it's
that way.
written. Unfortunately, that's the way it's written in the code. It calls
Yeah.
it the encroachment, and we can,
Okay.
again, I agree with you. Because when you're talking about a variance, we use different language, but essentially the same thing.
All right.
That's what gets confusing. Yeah.
Scott, any questions for Jason?
Not at this time. Not at this time.
Counselor Woodson?
None.
Vice Mayor? Counselor King?
Nothing.
All right, thank you.
And the
Yep.
applicants are here.
Applicants, would you like to come up and say anything? Introduce yourself? Nothing? Got to come up to the mic and identify yourself. Yep. No? You don't? Okay, does anybody have any questions? John, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Nothing.
Vice Mayor? Counselor Woodson?
No.
Counselor Safford?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, stay seated. All right. Public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself, provide an address, and whether you were sworn in. Anyone public? No? Frankie's shaking his head no. All right. We'll close, we'll close public comment. I'm guessing there's no additional comments from the applicant at this time. I will now close the public hearing and request a discussion or a motion from town council to approve with conditions, or deny with reasons, or a continuous to a time certain. Discussion or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 25-15, RPD 202-50181, 138-140 Delmar Avenue, with conditions as outlined in the proposal.
And move to second hearing.
Second hearing.
Oh, and move it to a second hearing.
Okay, got a motion by Counselor Woodson,
I'll second.
seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. Next is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving with conditions or denying special exception SEZ 202-50149 to allow a like-for-like replacement of the 2 tiki huts, decking, fence, gravel, driveway, and landscaping in the EC zoning district seaward of the 1978 CCCL for the property located at 4750 Estero Boulevard, Fort Myers Beach, Florida, providing for scrivener's errors, severability, and an effective date. If any town council member has had any ex parte communication to disclose, please let us know the subject discussed and the identity of the person, group, or entity with whom the communication took place, any correspondence that you received, or observations made of the site. Counselor King?
Nothing I recall.
Vice Mayor?
I do not believe so.
Counselor Woodson?
I have nothing.
Counselor Safford?
I do not.
And nothing on my end as well. Jason Smalley has been qualified as an expert already by this town council based on his education and experience, has been accepted as an expert in the field of land use planning and development in the town of Fort Myers Beach. Are there any other individuals who would like to be qualified as an expert witness on behalf of the applicant at this time? No one, okay. And is the property owner applicant seeing a copy of the agenda backup materials from staff? I don't see they're even here, okay. Go ahead, Jason.
Good morning. My name is Jason Smalley. I'm the senior planner with your Planning and Zoning Department. Good morning to councilors and staff. So, as was mentioned by the mayor, before you today is a special exception request for redevelopment within the town's EC zoning district. This is for 4750 Estero, otherwise known as Shores of Fort Myers Beach Condo. As was mentioned by the mayor earlier, they are requesting the rebuild of 2 tiki huts, a relatively larger one, a slightly smaller one. They'll also be replacing some pre-existing decking, fencing, and landscaping. They also will be dealing with a portion of their gravel walkway/driveway that extends past the 1978 CCCL line. The general area between the CCCL line and the seawall, where the development is slated to end, is approximately 2,280 square feet. Of that, the decking will constitute approximately 1,500 square feet, and the rest of the vast majority of the rest of the area is going to be landscape material. In the master concept plan that was provided to you, you can see a proposed list of species. Those species have already been looked over by Chad, but obviously he will also be looking at them through the process of redevelopment and working closely with them to ensure that the species that they choose are sustainable, right plant, right place. The applicant, as I mentioned, is not here today. I have not seen them, but if you have any questions for staff, I apologize. Based on the special exception criteria, staff recommends approval with conditions. One of those standard conditions is that no work will be done during turtle season, and so that means that they will be obligated to stay out of the area working at least until October. Are there any questions or concerns for staff?
Question, Jason. So it looks like everything that's being requested is landward of the existing seawall.
That is correct.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I also wanted to mention that the applicant's narrative stated that they've had these structures since 1982. Staff can't verify that with any permits. That's not unusual. And the LIPA aerials are only really readable as of about 2002. So staff can at least visually verify that the structures that they're asking to replace existed as far back as 2002, but the applicant states that they go back to at least 1982.
Scott, any questions for Jason?
So Chad, it's all good with everything?
I've already talked with Chad previous to this. He's comfortable with the proposed species that they're going to be using, but he will be working with them on any dune-related issues that's going on, and then once they're ready to come in for planting, he'll also be helping oversee that.
Okay, great. So he's going to be in the process.
He will be involved in the process,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
Counselor Woodson?
I have no questions.
Vice Mayor?
No questions.
Counselor King?
I think just a clarification, you said October for turtle season, it should be November 1st.
I'm sorry, November 1st. I thought it was October 31st, I guess beginning on November 1st. I apologize.
That's all right.
That is a very relevant clarification.
That's it for me.
Okay, and I don't have any more questions, Jason.
Excellent.
I don't see the applicant here, so we can skip by that. Are there any members of public comment? Are there any members of the public who wish to comment on this matter? If so, please come forward to the podium and identify yourself. Provide your address and whether you were sworn in. Still no, Frankie? Okay. There's no additional comments, obviously, from the applicant, so I will now close the public hearing and request a discussion or a motion from town council to approve with conditions, deny with reasons, or a continuance to a time certain. Discussion and/or motion. Anyone?
I'll go ahead and move SEZ 202-50149, 4750 Estero Boulevard, approving with conditions and set to an effective date.
All right, got a motion by Counselor King,
I'll second.
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. All right, that brings us to our administrative agenda. Our first item is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving the selection of Cigna for medical insurance coverage and the standard for supplemental insurance coverage for the fiscal year 2025-2026, and providing for an effective date. Take it away.
Good morning, Town Council and Town staff. My name is Talisa Oliveira, Human Resources Director for the record. We are here today to present to you the staff recommendations for our benefit insurance renewal for the upcoming fiscal year. So I have Athena Urchard here from Gehring Group. She's our insurance broker, so I know you usually hear from me, but she's the one that does all the magic on the back end, working directly with the carriers to help us insure our plans and cost each year. So she has a presentation for you today, but before she starts, I did want to just let you know that finance was very involved in this process. The recommendations have been approved by finance, and they are in the budget and budgeted for. Okay, all right, I'm going to turn it over to...
Before you do that,
Yes.
Talisa, if I could just engage in a brief colloquy with the town attorney.
Yes, sir.
My wife is a full-time employee of Elevance Health Insurance, and a lot of people assume Elevance is associated with the Blue Cross Blue Shield brand, but as I just Googled this, it says Elevance Health is not directly related to Florida Blue, as Florida Blue is an independent licensee of the Blue Cross and Blue Shield Association, while Elevance Health is a different large for-profit healthcare company that operates some other Florida Blue Shield plans. Florida Blue is part of a GuideWell family of companies and is independent and is an independent not-for-profit entity, whereas Elevance Health, formerly Anthem, is a for-profit insurer. And I would just say to the public who's watching this, Talisa and her team made this decision with the town manager as to who was selected. Florida Blue was one of the participants in that process, but they were not selected. I played no role in that selection process. So I just wanted to say all that for full disclosure. I don't believe, unless the town attorney feels otherwise, I don't believe I have to recuse myself, but I just wanted to put that on the record.
I would agree with you, Vice Mayor, and by the vote today, your spouse would not receive any type of private gain or loss.
No, in fact, they lost the account, even though they weren't affiliated. But yes, that's correct.
Okay, any other questions for me? All right, I'm going to turn it over to Athena.
Thank you, Talisa. Good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of council, and town staff. I'm Athena Urchard from Gehring Group Risk Strategies, and we're very honored to work with the town and their staff on their employee benefits program. So what we have before you today is the process leading up to this renewal. The town transitioned to the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust back in 2023, and we've had one renewal with them in 2024, which was a 7% renewal, very competitive. I will say that the landscape for medical trend right now, according to PricewaterhouseCoopers, was forecasted originally for 2025 to be 7.5%. Midway through the year, they actually increased that to 8%. So some of those drivers for medical trend are going to be a lot of consolidation within the provider community, so it drives more difficult negotiations with the insurance carriers, and also difficulty obtaining staff. Within the medical realm, we especially suffer from a shortage of providers here in Florida. And there's also been an increase in inpatient behavioral health claims that has helped to drive that trend. So that's just some of the things that we're seeing in the landscape in the market. This year was our second renewal with FMIT, and the rate increase was an 85%. So obviously a staggering number for any entity, and that was largely driven by large claimant activity. And there's no way to avoid that. That's why we have insurance, but that is obviously what a big driver was for the 85%. So we took this to market. And the ancillary lines too, we were in rate guarantee back in 2023, so we did not market those, but we did market them this time around. So here are some of the RFP responses that you can see. And Aetna declined to quote because they didn't feel that they were competitive. Cigna and Florida Blue provided quotes on the medical insurance, and then we had quite a bit of activity on the ancillary lines, the ancillary being your dental, vision, and life insurance and disability. The plan comparison, as Talisa mentioned, staff is recommending a move to Cigna. Cigna has a very competitive offer on the table. There are some modifications to the plan design, but it is still a very competitive plan design, which would increase the family deductible. I can't see that far over there, so I'll have to go with this way. The family deductible from $500 to $750. It would increase the maximum out of pocket from $2,500 if you're enrolled as a single to $3,000 and to $6,000 as a family, and a bump on the primary care and specialist office visit copays. Advanced imaging would go from $100 copay to $200, and the emergency room visit would also increase. Then on the retail pharmacy side, we have tier 2 and tier 3 actually coming in at a little bit of a lower copay. So a very, not an exact match plan design, but still a very competitive and comparable plan design. Are there any questions here before I move on?
Could you just as a premise, you said that last year the rates went up 7% and they're proposing 85% increase, which is obviously very significant. What under Cigna's proposal, what's the percent increase from our existing premium?
18.
18, okay,
So-
thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. So,
I'm sorry, just follow up on that. Just as a broker, is that because Cigna has the size and the scale and their pool is so much larger, they can absorb?
Cigna's banking on a better year, and obviously, yes, the Florida Municipal Insurance Trust is just that. It's a trust with a lot of public sector employers in it. However, Cigna definitely has a bigger pool, if you will.
They could spread the risk.
Right, so behind the scenes, you're still pooled with other employers because you're actually in a fully insured arrangement.
Gotcha, thank you.
So part of our analysis is to actually look at the network of the specific providers utilized by the population here at the town. And based on that, we found that Florida Blue, with their Blue Options network, matched 89% of those utilized providers, and Cigna matched to 96%. I also want to point out that Cigna has a national seamless network, which is similar to what the employees currently have with United Healthcare. And what I mean by national seamless, as you mentioned, Vice Mayor, all of the Blue Cross and Blue Shields are independently owned. So if you're enrolled in a Florida Blue PPO plan and you travel to North Carolina, you're actually accessing a Blue Cross and Blue Shield of North Carolina provider. So they have reciprocity, but it's not a true national seamless network like United Healthcare has and like Cigna has. So that's going to come into play, obviously, if you have college students that are outside of the state and retirees who may retire elsewhere. Additionally, there's been a focus here at the town on wellness, and part of Florida Blue and Cigna's offer are wellness funds, which you currently do not have today. Florida Blue's offer included a $5,000 wellness fund, and Cigna has a $10,000 wellness fund and also a $2,000 optional services fund. So that optional services fund is to help the town if they in a transition, because your benefits admin system is iSolved, if there are any charges or fees that iSolved would propose for the town to set up a carrier file feed on the back end, you have $2,000 there to offset that. So it's not coming out of your budget. And then also value-added services. Florida Blue has the Blue 365 program, which gives discounts on personal care, gym memberships, healthy eating, financial health, and lifestyle products. And Cigna has a suite of value adds. I would say this is probably one of their strengths because there is a lot of value adds that are at no additional cost to the town that are included just by virtue of being a Cigna member. Some of those.
Oh, I'm
Yes,
sorry,
sir.
you're going to get to this, but I want to expand on it a minute because we have a facility here called Bay Oaks, which is where we have exercise opportunities for our residents. And is the gym discount the Silver Sneakers program, or is it different?
It's different.
But I would just, for those who might be listening who have health insurance, many of health insurance programs have discounts like this. So if you wanted to use those discounts, like the Silver Sneaker program or this particular discount, they're applicable to entities like Bay Oaks, and it's a great way to save, but it's also a way for the town to continue to get revenue at Bay Oaks. And it's a win-win for everybody. So some people forget that their health insurance has that benefit, and it's a great benefit for everyone involved.
Thank you for that plug,
Sorry.
Vice Mayor. No,
Sorry.
that's, you should come to the open enrollment meetings. No, that's a very, very great point, and people should absolutely look at their plans because you're right. A lot of times there are gym memberships that are built in, and one pearl of wisdom I'll just interject there is that sometimes when they do offer a gym membership, and it's a place like LA Fitness, for example, because a lot of gyms are independently owned, right? So just because one LA Fitness is in the network, so to speak, is offering a discount, it doesn't necessarily mean that the LA Fitness on the other side of town is participating. So sometimes people don't realize that when they try to access those gyms. You really have to hone in on the location of the gym that you're looking at and make sure that that particular one is one of the gyms that offers the discount. But nonetheless, in this offer, it does include gym discounts. In addition to, I can't say enough about Cigna One Guide because I myself have used Cigna One Guide, and what that is it takes customer service to really a whole nother level. So when your employees call in, and they have us to lean on as well, but if they have maybe something that they want to investigate, a new diagnosis, for example, and what I had contacted Cigna One Guide about, because there was a time when we had Cigna insurance at my company, I had a very long list of lab work that needed to be done. And someone from One Guide sat on the phone with me because we had a high deductible health plan. And I went code by code by code, and probably an hour of them looking it up to tell me, here's what your responsibility would be, so that I didn't walk in blind with a very large, lab work bill. So I can't say enough about these folks because they are highly, highly trained. And the other nice thing about them is, if someone is struggling with a condition, they know exactly where within Cigna to connect them so that that member is making the most of their benefits and they're getting the right resources. So it's a great, great service. They also include identity theft protection. They have a diabetes prevention program. Recovery One includes health coaches and physical therapy virtually. Happify is a gamified mindfulness app that you can download. Headspace is also another app that gives employees access to coaches and therapists and psychiatrists. iPrevail is a digital platform that targets anxiety, builds resilience, and reduces stress. They have a Healthy Babies program for expectant mothers, as well as discounts on food and personal nutrition support, which I love, with a virtual dietitian. So a lot of great offerings there for the employees. For the ancillary lines, the current carrier has been Lincoln for a number of years here at the town, and Lincoln held your current dental rates and vision rates, but the short-term and long-term disability renewals increased 5%. Not a terrible increase, but since we were out to market anyway on the medical side, we also looked at all your lines of coverage, and we got competitive quotes. The most competitive being from MetLife and Standard, and we look at this because we can really maximize from a bundling capacity. And what I mean by that is if the dental, the vision, the life, and the disability are placed with one carrier, in future negotiating years, when it comes renewal time, you have more premium dollars with them. So that helps with negotiations, but it also helps from a year one perspective because they're able to get more competitive on the rates. And obviously, it streamlines administration for staff because they're not dealing with multiple vendors and multiple bills. They're dealing with one vendor for the ancillary lines. So we really had a home run this time around. So Standard matched the current benefit schedule for the dental plan and at a decrease. So that's always nice to see. A 20% decrease, which is the savings of just shy of $13,000 annually. The Vision finalists, Standard utilizes Vision Service Plan or VSP. You may have heard of that. That is who basically does the vision administration for them, and they also utilize the VSP network. They have matched the vision plan, but they have also increased the frame allowance from $130 to $150 with an additional 20% discount. They've also extended a 2-year rate guarantee, and the annual cost is pretty much a wash on that. So just to recap, also Standard has a rollover benefit where if members go for their preventative exam and their cleanings, but they use less than $750 in a year for dental, they'll be able to tack on up to $600 if they stay in network to their annual maximum. So that's a way over time for them to build their annual maximum if there's a year where they need more extensive dental work, like a crown or a bridge. It comes in handy in helping to offset those costs. Vision has a 2-year rate guarantee. Basic Life has a 3-year rate guarantee and also an 8.7% decrease. And the short and long-term disability coverages with Standard also have a 3-year rate guarantee with a negative 14% and a negative 22% on the long-term disability. So some nice savings here. So our recommendations before you today are to, effective October 1st, to move from FMIT to Cigna. The cost impact, you can see the town's portion would be the $161,000 at the 18%. A move from Lincoln to Standard on the dental with a decrease. The vision is, again, pretty much a wash, a 0%, and the basic short-term and long-term with their decrease, basically, to what you currently spend. And then also, Standard has the ability to, because one of the things that employees have access to through Lincoln are EAP visits. So Standard has a small buy-up program for you to purchase additional EAP visits, which would bring it up to 6 visits for 35 cents per employee per month. So that's the $300 charge that you see. Does anyone have
So
any
what's the net, the overall increase, if you were to add all that? I don't have a calculator in front of me, but if you were to add all that up between the medical and then the decreases in the other?
Yeah, so the impact to the town for everything would be
Round about it.
$141,664.
Thank you.
I have one question, if I may. I know most doctors handle Cigna. Is the standard pretty, I don't want to say standard, but is pretty standard with most of the
With their dental
dentists
network.
and eye care?
Yes, so VSP, you may have heard of VSP. They have a very large network. So the members will have access to a lot of retail chains as well as private doctors. And for dental, they also have a very robust dental network. Their match was 77%. I think it was slightly higher with Lincoln, 79%. That was actually 3 providers, a difference of of 3. With dental, it's a little bit different than medical because a member can access an out-of-network dentist anytime they want. So the network allows them to stretch their annual maximum, if you will, because those doctors have agreed to a lower contracted rate, but they absolutely have the freedom to go out of network.
Thank you. My other question is, although the open enrollment's now and takes effect October, would the insurance actually kick in January 1?
No, it would go into effect in October 1st, yes.
So if you have a doctor, you'd have to let them know after October 1?
You'd have to give your new ID card to pharmacists and to doctors, yes. Correct.
Any other questions, Scott?
No.
Karen?
It's not really a question, but just a comment. I mean, I know from my previous life of the work that goes into this and how extremely important it is to have great benefit coverage. It's a recruitment tool, it's a retention tool for all of our staff. And I mean, who would have ever thought we'd have an 85% increase? But to get it down to an 18% increase in this kind of market with our claims history, I think is incredible. So great job to all of you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I commend you and our Human Resources Department for excellent work. A trivia question of the day, which Frankie got, which I can't believe he did. Where is Standard Insurance domicile?
Portland.
I was asking her.
Frankie knew because John knew.
Is that right?
Yeah,
All right, well, let the record show.
Oregon.
Yeah. I
Thank-
did not know that either.
Thank you for your efforts.
Thank you.
I thought the standard was downtown Fort Myers, but what do I know? John, anything?
I knew that because I'd had dealings with him in a previous life, so, no questions, but I'll piggyback on what Karen said. Disappointed, and the Vice Mayor, disappointed in the FMIT, being a new board of director member. I'll be looking into that and talking and discussing that, especially about the late notification about the increase. That was disappointing. Thank you both for all your hard work and the savings you've done for the town taxpayers and the continued good benefits for the town employees. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. All right, is there any further discussion or a motion for Resolution 25-273 for health insurance renewal?
I'll move the motion to approve Resolution 25-273, health insurance renewal.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor King. Any further discussion? Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderhood?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. Next is Resolution 25-247. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving a second amendment to the CDBG DR subrecipient grant agreement, DR 10262, between the town and the Lee County Board of County Commissioners to change the referenced key personnel for the North Island Water Tower and change the address to the new town hall, authorizing the execution of the second amendment by the town manager and providing an effective date. Frankie?
Frankie?
Frankie Kirkpatrick, Community
Frankie, I'm
Development
going to
Director.
challenge you before you start into the granular piece of this. Would you just take a minute and explain the North Water Tower, the South Tower, and give us just an overview of the operational aspects of both of those towers before you get into the details?
So the water system that the town inherited from the county when we became the town of Fort Myers Beach consisted of two water storage facilities, one on the north side of the island off Lagoon, and the other one on Linnell to the south end of the island. The water that's purchased from the town, from the county, used to come through the bay, through a water line. It still does. They had a off-island pump station on their side, and we had one where we call the Moss Marine pump station, not to be confused with Moss Marine proper. It just happened to be coinciding on their property where the main pump came out of the ground. Back before Ian, both tanks were filled. Both tanks, by gravity feed, keep water pressure. If the line is intact, they keep water pressure. Prior to Ian's impact, the North Tower was taken out of service for inspection, and it was deemed at that time unsatisfactory for use. Within a month of that report, Ian hit and did a number on the rest of the whole station itself, leaving the town with just one water storage facility, which is the one on Linnell currently. The facade and structure of that building had taken a pretty good hit, but the tank itself was sound, and we were able to continue to pump and provide good quality water to the people of Fort Myers Beach. There's going to be a couple of things in the news and in the media coming up where you're going to hear about a new pump station for Fort Myers Beach. It's the county's facility. They just call it for Fort Myers Beach. And it's not exactly on our island, nor does it affect us, and it is not one of our CDBGR projects. It's the county's. What we are asking for through
Well, Frankie, it does affect us.
it totally does, because it provides us the water.
But it doesn't affect our CDBGR funding.
Right, or it's not included in the bundle of things that we've asked for. As far as our asks go, the North Tower is to be rebuilt. It was found functionally unsound prior to Ian. This was a great avenue for the town to get back to where we needed to be. We all know where we live. We all know what can happen to us at any given moment with storms and whatnot. To think that we've existed for 3 years with just one storage facility on this island and been able to handle that and keep up with the water pressures has been a miracle in and of itself. But we definitely don't want to get to the point where we're just calling, "Hey, Culligan Man," every time we run out of water.
Frankie, that was an excellent overview. Just out of curiosity, I've heard where there was discussion of having, instead of just being dependent upon one source of water from that North Tower, or heading to the North Tower, there was some discussion of tapping in on the south end to Bonita Springs.
That still would come through the Lee County distribution line.
Is that
Yes.
happening, or could you give us an
No,
update
but
on
I
it?
mean, it would still be, we always talk about the village or the city of Bonita. It wouldn't actually be them. It would actually still be through the county. We have not explored that since, I think we've had a few discussions. Yeah, we would also need a larger booster pump on that end to traverse the bay opening on that is.
But is that something potentially in the long-term plan of the island?
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
I know the counties, the talks that we've had with their team and our team, that they are looking at totally revamping that down the road as well. That plant that they have that provides that water is a little younger and a little bit more robust than the one that they currently have now, and that's part of the reason why they're replacing it here.
Just to state the obvious, if we had that second option through Bonita, that would create redundancies that could be helpful, obviously, in the time of emergency, correct?
You are correct, sir. And redundancy in that line of work is something that you have to have. It's not a luxury. It's a must. So that is the next checkoff on the list as soon as we get the matters at hand taken care of.
Gotcha. Thank you.
But what I'm here today to just brief you, you have a couple of things in front of you. B, C, and D are all the same. They're just related to the different projects within the CDBGR asks that the town made. And basically what it's doing is it's taking the financial burden off the town manager, who was acting finance director until we got one, and now it's reestablishing Joe Onzik back to his original role as our finance director. So that's the ask. So I just wanted to get up here and just say that, so I don't know if that moves things along quicker or whatever.
So
but
basically all you're saying is it's going to change to Joe's name versus
yes, that's
Will's
all
name.
those three items are. Yes, sir.
Not changing the funding, not changing
No,
the
sir.
projects, not
No,
changing
sir.
anything, just
No,
a
sir.
name change on the
And
documents.
by law, with
And
HUD,
address.
with HUD, we have to do that. We have to make sure that any changes that we do have to senior staff or senior people that are put onto those lists have to be mandated and go before council to be voted on.
So since we're going to move these along and they're all the exact same thing, have we gotten any updates on timeframes as to when funding is going to be, I know it's been approved, but released to actually start the projects?
I would like to say soon. We have our weekly meetings with the county and their subcontractor that deals with the CDBGR directly. Our team has submitted everything that we possibly could on a lot of fronts. We're cleaning up some details back and forth between language of our proposal and what the county previously agreed to and what we are mentioning. Just basically language back and forth at this point. But we need that language to get approval on their side before we can bring it to you for final approval.
And do we expect them to come all three buckets, if you will, to come at one time, or would it do we think one's gonna come before the other? Obviously
We're
talking
going to
about the pool.
probably have 2 buckets before you at the same time, and that will be the North Water Tower and the pool.
Parks
The
and
third
Rec.
bucket was, we
Planning.
had one of the bidders send in a price sheet and for an RFQ that's not acceptable, and it got through on the county side and also got through on our side. So that had to go out for rebid, and that's currently in the process of out on Demand Star now.
Okay, so you really don't, it's kind of in the county's hands now, is what you're saying, as far as when we can expect to receive the funding to start those projects?
The funding, you're probably looking at probably the end of this calendar year to start those
Okay.
projects.
All right, any other questions for Frankie? None? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
No need to come back up on the other ones, we'll just, well, unless Will wants you to come back up for some reason, but. All right, is there any further discussion or a motion for Resolution 25-247 for CDBG DR organized change for the North Water Tower? I will move it. Is there
I'll
a-
second.
All right, a motion by Mayor Aller, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? I'm an aye. Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderhope?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next is item C. This is for Resolution 25-248. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving a second amendment to the CDBG DR subrecipient grant agreement DR 10263 between the town and Lee County Board of County Commissioners to change the referenced key personnel for the Parks Facility and Recreation Revitalization Project and to change the town hall address to 6231 Estero Boulevard, Fort Myers Beach, in the agreement, authorizing the town manager to execute the second amendment and provide for an effective date. Any discussion? All right. If not, I will make a motion to approve Resolution 25-248,
Second?
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? I'm an aye. Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Adderhope?
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Next is item D. This is Resolution 25-249. It is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving a second amendment to the CDBG DR subrecipient grant agreement DR 10157 between the town and Lee County Board of County Commissioners to change the reference key personnel for the Recovery and Resilience Planning Program, authorizing the execution and second amendment by the town manager and provide an effective date. I will also move that item.
And I will second.
All right, motion by Mayor Allers, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? I am an aye. Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
And Vice Mayor Adderhope?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next is item E. This is Resolution 25-256. It is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, amending the contract approved August 4th, 2025 with Andrew Site Work for the purchase and replacement of 18 additional non-operable fire hydrants located throughout the town for an additional cost not to exceed $145,256 for a total not to exceed contract amount of $435,768, providing for severability and for an effective date. Jeff?
Jeff Hogan, Community Services Director, Town of Fort Myers Beach. Yeah, this will be paid out of the water fund. It's just, we've talked about the hydrant replacements before. There was a lot that were not operable. We definitely need that for public safety. They've been working on replacing a majority of them already. I don't have the exact number, but this is just to do 18 additional ones.
John, questions for, it was 36 originally is what the.
Yeah, 36.
No, he answers my questions. Thanks, Jeff.
Vice Mayor?
No questions.
Counselor Woodson?
I have none.
And Counselor Safford?
I'm good.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Is there a motion for Resolution 25-256?
So moved.
Second.
A motion by Counselor Woodson, seconded by Counselor King. Any further discussion? Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderhope?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. Next is Resolution 25-270. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving a third amendment to the agreement between the Town of Fort Myers Beach and Earthview LLC for stormwater maintenance and repairs to increase funds available for additional ground penetrating radar services in an amount not to exceed $130,000. And 2, include additional standard contract terms and conditions authorizing the execution of the third amendment by the town manager and providing for an effective date. Jeff?
Again, Jeff Hauge, Community Services Director. Again, this is the water fund that it's getting paid out of. Hopefully this is hopefully one of the last extensions we're gonna have to get with this. We are working on hiring staff that can perform these duties as far as locates and ground penetrating radar. So hopefully, fingers crossed, we can do this in-house from now on, but we may need them for certain projects, but this is just to increase what we need.
Do we have the equipment to do it?
We do have a GPR, we do have that, and we have somebody trained in it. We don't really have a staff that has experience with locates, but we do have some openings in the utility department that we're currently hiring for that, and we have some good potential candidates that do have locate experience.
All right, questions for Jeff? All right, is there a motion for Resolution 25-270?
So moved.
I got a motion by Counselor King,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. Next is Resolution 25-269. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, under the emergency procurement policy to approve a proposal from Andrew Site Work LLC with the town's contract addendum for the installation of stormwater piping on Palermo Circle and a not-to-exceed price of $36,171.60 to alleviate the flooding on Estero Boulevard by diverting Estero storm water to the outfall on Santos Boulevard via Palermo Circle, authorizing the town manager to execute the emergency purchase and providing for an effective date. Jeff?
Jeff Hauge, Community Services Director. So we had an interesting situation that we may have happen now going forward. So the drainage on Estero Boulevard, especially in that area, we've kind of found it a little bit by accident with doing some stormwater cleanup, is that it didn't connect to any of our storm drains. So it would like more of a French drain kind of thing. It would just connect from one drainage to the other in that pipe, and it would just dissipate. So it would fill up really quick, and there's fill up with sand. That was never connected when they did the Estero Boulevard project. This was just the first one of probably a couple that we probably will have to do to connect and provide drainage on Estero and our side streets. So this is part of that. It's under the stormwater fund again. So we found that a little bit going forward with different drainages. Even this property, it didn't have an outfall. It just went from drain to drain. Didn't have a connection to an outfall. So I don't know the reason behind that as why that happened. That was obviously before my time and before Ian. So we're trying to fix all those issues. We do have some funds coming up in stormwater and some grants that we have to help alleviate that. Also with a swale grant that we have that'll help the drainage too. So one of our main focuses is on the drainage, obviously on this island. I think that's a big one. Just got an email again today about some standing water. So we're continuing to work on it and finding those faults in the system. And on a side note, we have been using our gap back truck, which has been great. We've had it out there cleaning out the drains, and we can do it much quicker than having Earthview come in and scheduling it 2 weeks out.
And this water that's going to be now going into the drain, what outfall will it use? I think I read it was Santos?
Yeah,
outfall?
Santos, yeah.
Okay. Questions for Jeff? Scott?
We've way past the statute of limitations to get any recourse on that stupidity.
Yeah, I would assume, I mean, it
That's
had
polite
been
way to
part of the design. I don't know, I wasn't part of the design before, but we probably are gonna, once they do redo Estero Boulevard again, we may find that happened. Not the only place. Yeah, it's not the only place, so whether it's us, I did talk to Lee County about it too, and that'd be a great opportunity for us to work together to try to bridge those gaps and not have the
Literally.
standing water at Estero that we have.
Well, didn't we both use Tetra Tech? I'm trying to refresh my memory, because it was, obviously, the county had to come in and do Estero Boulevard first, and then we were coming in to connect to their system afterwards, if memory serves me. Maybe Vice Mayor can help me out a little bit. I think we're the only two.
I don't have knowledge of that past experience, but.
But I want to say it was Tetra Tech that we use. Don't we still to this day use Tetra Tech? So to Counselor Safford's point, we have to be able to have some sort of repercussions for a mistake that was made not by the town.
Possibly, when we did talk to Tetra Tech, it was a decision by the council and possibly funds that we had at the time. So we have addressed it, but I'd have to dig a little bit deeper on the background of it.
I would like more, I mean, we'll move forward, I think we'll probably move forward with this, but I'd like some more information on that, because I don't remember, at least since I've been on council, ever being approached to say, do you want to connect to the outfall or not? Sure. I mean, maybe that was made at the management level, I don't know, but I don't, Jim, do you? I don't remember ever voting,
No.
no, we're not going to spend the money to connect the outfalls.
And we've also found, speaking with Mark Ashton, who's brilliant in the field work for us, for the town, he's found a lot of drains that just connected drains with no outfall. And
these are the new drains after?
No, not a part of Tier 1. This is before
Okay.
Tier 1. We're finding this out because of Tier 1 and trying to resolve some of the drainage issues that we have. For instance, we need, in this property, it drains from here to here, but it sits in a pipe. So we want the outfall to go either one way or the other. There's also an outfall that could go out the front. So there are just things that we've been finding, especially lately, that part of the drainage issues that we have. But we're trying to address as many as we can. Luckily, we're okay in our stormwater funding and getting grants and appropriations, hopefully, to resolve a lot of these issues as well.
And as we're going through these Tier 1, Tier 2, we're fixing these issues, I hope, so that we're not,
yes,
or some other council 10 years from now is sitting here?
Yes, the one, we're trying to do it the right way. But obviously, with the funds we have, we'll have to keep coming back to ask. But luckily, we've gotten some grants and appropriations to help some of the, if there's any damage from the storms, and we're hopefully going to have some to do some additional drainage, even downtown on 3rd Street, where it always pools up. So, yeah.
Well, I think this might be speaking with Ron yesterday, this might be very good ammunition for state appropriation requests.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we've already started those discussions. Jeff and Jason have already been talking with Ron and his team about this next round of appropriations, asking for, again, more stormwater assistance.
And I just want everyone to know that we are definitely working on it and hopefully finding some good solutions, because we know that's a big issue here.
If I may, what we're talking about here is the funding in the budget. Are there funds?
Yes,
Okay.
there are funds in the stormwater fund.
Okay.
And then we also have a couple that we have to come to you at probably next meeting. I don't know when we're gonna put it on for the SRF. We got that loan increased, so we'll come back to you to approve that SRF loan. There's a couple, Carlos Circle, Seaview, were a couple more that we added to that SRF to help with stormwater on those roads.
All right, any other questions for Jeff on Resolution 25-269? Seeing none, is there a motion for Resolution 25-269?
So moved, Mayor.
Motion by Counselor King,
Second.
seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Counselor King?
Yeah,
Aye.
wait,
Oh, go
further
ahead.
discussion, just for the record, we need to take care of this. If we know there's a problem, there's potentially more problems. I don't want to see 36 grand every 2 weeks on our agenda. So if we could get our arms, I know you're doing your best, but we need to make this a priority so we're not getting 36,000 every.
I agree. I don't know why it happened that way.
No, I'm not blaming you.
No, I know.
Yeah,
It'd
so-
be nice to know the history of it too.
Right.
So I could come back and at least hopefully give you that and talk to Tetra Tech and see how
And
or
that
why
may
they
give
designed
us
it this
some ammo
way.
going down the road of what our forecast is
For appropriations.
for appropriations.
Yes, we'll definitely make every effort. I think Jeff and his team make every effort to try and get as many of those together, for you, so you don't get hit every council meeting with the small ones. But we also try to address them when we find them. And we don't want If we see a drainage issue, a stormwater issue building up in particular locations, we'd rather address it as fast as we can. But absolutely, we'll try to combine these. We're going to, Jeff mentions all the different funding avenues that we seek on a regular basis to assist
Yeah, and
with this.
this one happened, hate to say it, but kind of on accident. We already had the hole open for a different issue, and we found that it wasn't connected, so we went ahead and
Okay, great,
connected.
great work.
Is there a reason why we're not proactively going out and scoping all these drains to figure it out so we have one project to,
We
I think,
scoped
Counselor
everything
Safford's-
after Ian. We just kind of talked about that. I know I don't want to bring it up, but part of the gap vac truck, you can do a scoping mechanism to it. It's costly, but we can definitely get Earthview out to scope these drains. It is a lengthy and expensive process to scope them all. They did not do video last time, I don't believe, so it'd be nice to get video of all the drains.
Well, costly, what is cost, how much time does it take to prepare this stuff and come before council and, time, staff, energy, all that kind of stuff? It'd be nice to know, when you're going in to build something, you'd like to know if you're renovating a wall, if you have a way to know what's behind it before you start digging into it. It sure would be nice to know ahead of time. We could be looking at a much larger project or something that's very small. I would be in support of, what do we have? If we have the ability to be able to find out what's beneath our feet before we get caught in potentially another storm season, it would sure be nice to know where we're gonna have problems before we have problems.
Yeah, and when they have Acero Boulevard open, next year, this year even, I'm not sure when they're gonna start. It'd be a good time to do it. It's already gonna be open. So, yeah, we'll do some research, and at least scope the ones off of Estero and see which ones are actually connected to outfalls. It's a little eye-opening that it wasn't.
All right, any other questions for Jeff? We've got a motion by Counselor King, seconded by Counselor Woodson. Any further discussion? Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt? Aye. Counselor Safford?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. That motion carries unanimously. Next is item H, Resolution 25-272. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, approving supplemental task authorization STA number 17 with Access Infrastructure, Inc., in the amount not to exceed $195,000, retroactive to May 1st, 2025, for a cumulative total of payment for services under RFQ 20-22-AD to close out the fiscal year 2025 for the continuation of planning services, authorizing the town manager to sign STA number 17 and providing for an effective date. Frankie?
Good morning. Frankie Kropacek, Community Development Director. This is just to kind of catch up paperwork to services. This should have been brought to you probably about a month and a half ago. It just was kind of caught up and bogged up in the chain. But this is just to make right and finish out the calendar year with Access Group before we start the next contract.
Questions for Frankie? A question I guess generally have for staff is, are we, with Judith leaving, nothing against Jason and Access, but are we proactively looking for a replacement for an in-house planner?
Yes, sir, we have. We have several different avenues which we're currently exploring.
And that would help offset these additional costs that we're talking about?
We're always going to need that consultant group.
I'm not asking
Right.
that. I'm just
And eventually, yes, that's where we want to get to here, sir.
All right. Any other questions for Frankie? Nope. All right. Is there a motion for Resolution 25-272? I'll make a motion to approve. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Counselor Safford. Any further discussion? I'm an aye. Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
And Counselor King?
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Next item was item I, that was removed. That leaves us with the last one, item J, Resolution 25-246. This is a resolution of the Town Council of the Town of Fort Myers Beach, Florida, accepting a utility easement from the Leo J. DiBiase and Valerie J. DiBiase Revocable Living Trust dated August 20th, 2014, the trust, and directing the finance director to make a payment of $85,000 upon recording of the utility easement as agreed to by the town in a settlement agreement dated April 7th, 2025, providing a severability clause and providing an effective date. Nancy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I've gone from
Sorry,
I've gone
Mr.
from a
Mayor.
900-pound gorilla to a madam.
Well, we had LPA, yesterday or day
Yeah.
before, so I was kind of tuned that way. Anyway, I am very happy to advise you today that we do have a signed, executed copy of the utility easement that is the subject matter of the settlement agreement. You may recall that this item had been on some prior agendas that you had, that we had to pull it at the last minute. But we do have an original easement, and it is basically, there's a copy of an unsigned one in your materials. The request today is that you accept the easement. I have reviewed it with the other attorneys, and it's legally sufficient. This would be the next step towards completing the settlement agreement, which had been approved by you back in April. The settlement had been negotiated back in December, so you can see this is just dragged on, but we do want to bring it to conclusion. And the next step would be for you to accept the utility easement. Thereafter, in accordance with the settlement agreement, there would be a payment made for the real property interest that utility easement gives the town. The amount is $85,000. However, there is insurance proceeds that can be applied, so it's really going to be about $45,000, and that will conclude this matter. What it provides, the utility easement provides for the legal right to have some of the town piping that was in the ground that was not known. And also, the town had gone in and removed a dock area without really any proper documentation or authority to do that, and this would resolve that matter.
Questions for Nancy?
Nancy, just a little more history on this. This was a situation where the town was in error, and this settlement is to correct that error. Is that correct, if I remember correctly?
Yes, that is correct.
All right, thank you.
And how far back, since you talked about how far back this has all gone, how far back did that original error take place? When did that occur? Do you remember, or no?
I do not know. Jeff may know. I don't know. Do you know? Yeah.
It was pre.
I see something on here of 2014. I don't know if that's.
No, that I believe is the
No.
date of their
Original
trust.
I want to
settlement?
say it
Okay.
happened around the start of the Tier 1 project for the side
Yeah,
streets.
I don't have a, Jeff Hauge, Community Services Director, I don't have a date on that. I know it was definitely pre-Ian. It didn't just happen, I know that, because even after Ian, we looked at it, because they had inquired about it, so. It's been a while. I don't remember the history behind that either.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, it would have been whenever they redid Lazy Way.
Yeah.
So whenever that time frame was, I don't remember exactly how long ago that was, but I want to say it was at the start of Tier 1, somewhere in there. But yes,
Okay.
irregardless, it was an outfall put in that shouldn't have been put in a spot it was put in. Yes. All right, any other questions? Is there a motion for Resolution 25-245?
Mr. Mayor, I'll move approval of Resolution 25-245.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Motion by Vice Mayor Adderholt, seconded by Counselor King. Any further discussion? Vice Mayor Adderholt?
Aye.
Counselor King?
Aye.
Counselor Woodson?
Aye.
And Counselor Safford?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. That brings us to final public comment. There is no one here. So we will close final public comment. Town managers items. Will?
I'd just like to once again take the opportunity to congratulate and thank staff and thank the council for your support through the whole process of occupying and opening this wonderful new facility. It really has made a big difference for all of the staff. We did have another meeting on another topic. I did have another meeting, as I talked about last time, with the FEMA CAV team on Friday, where we reviewed some of our submissions, received some positive feedback on those submissions that we had sent in as far as positive. I mean, moving some of the identified properties and structures from a non-compliant to a compliant status, according to FEMA. And since then, we've submitted another 30 for, out of the final, or we've reached upped our submissions up to 30 of the 99 that are still remaining on the list as non-compliant. About half of those we've received positive feedback, moving them into a better category. We're still waiting on responses on the remaining of those 30, and the team is actively working every day, putting together responses to the rest that are on that list. I still remain confident that we'll get to a better place with those, from moving them from a non-compliant to a compliant status. It's just a difficult process as we go line by line on their RFIs and line by line through the FEMA and flood management statute process, which you're all very familiar with. But it's going through, and I have an open line of communication with the Region 4 leadership anytime I have an issue. So, and that's all I have for this morning, Mr. Mayor.
I was going to bring it up, but since you brought it up, it was brought to my attention yesterday that there's been some issues with people putting up flood barriers, like shutters or whatever. Is it, they made it sound that it was a FEMA direction that they were dry flood proofing their house, but then someone else said it was they didn't have permits to put them up. So can we give some clarification? I told them I'd bring it up today, and since you were talking about FEMA, I just want to find out what the whole, this is the first I had heard of it.
That's good. Yeah, so anytime we're making a structural change to a property, so in other words, you're bolting to that structure any type of flood barrier, that you need a permit for, because you're affecting the structure and how it would react under wave load. Anytime you're putting up a mechanical or a semi-mechanical, like the ones you can go to Home Depot and buy, a tiger dam, things like that, that's where it gets a little gray area for FEMA, and FEMA will not stretch its neck out and say yay or nay. What we dealt with here were people that have actually been, I don't want to say duped, but we had a salesman come through and go up and down the streets and said, hey, it looks like your house was affected by floodwater. If you buy this, we'll not only store on a set of steak knives, but it will protect your house from flooding. And people, they just bought them. When FEMA came through and did the CAV, and people had these up or may have seen people that had these up, it's like, you can't do that, you can't do that. So we've had continued conversations. We've separated a lot of those lists, but we still have people out there that have actually gone through and hired companies that we see on TV all the time, and they'll come through and they'll actually bolt panels to your garage to keep the water from going in.
Well, but I want to be
Those
clear
are
about what,
permitted.
when you say you can't do that and you can't do that, everybody knows you got to have a permit to do it. So is the issue been that they haven't pulled permits to do this? Or
That is
that
correct.
FEMA has an issue that you can't put up storm shutters? Or even if you go and get a permit, can you?
It's kind of a twofold thing. So FEMA has a problem with the fact that the people did not pull permits for the structural type
Okay, so
flood
it wasn't
barriers.
the fact that they were putting up
And-
storm shutters if it was properly.
And also to that, and Tom can talk on the compliance side of that, but yes, it was a twofold thing. They saw one set of circumstances and they just carried it over to everything they saw, and that's not the case.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm more confused now than I was before I asked the question.
Morning, Council.
Push the button.
There you go.
Yeah.
Morning, Council. Thomas Yasmin, Emergency Services Director. To be very clear with this, we're still waiting for direction on some of this. We've put requests out to FEMA, FDEM. FDEM is taking the lead as part of the dry flood proofing issue that this comes to, because as you look at the regulation now, you're not supposed to dry flood proof any structure that's residential. It's primarily for commercial projects only. So the
FEMA
permitting
is so FEMA is, sorry to interrupt, Tom, but so what they said was fairly accurate, because they said they've received letters. Now, I don't know if those letters came from us or if they came from FEMA, but essentially saying you can't dry flood proof residential. So is FEMA saying that because you're buying storm shutters, assuming it's through a company and they go through the permitting process to install them, that they're viewing that as dry flood proofing your residential property?
Yes, sir. So
That's so backwards.
the bigger part here comes into, is it mitigation or are they dry flood proofing? So that's what we're trying to clarify with the federal government and the state government. And we were told that within the next 2 weeks to a month, that they would have some direction in that we could give out to our, to the citizens that live here. The regulations are very clear in some respect. In this one, they're very hazy. So we're trying to get clarification, as you know, as you've watched
Yeah.
this process over the last year and a half.
And to be clear with that, just one moment, Mr. Mayor, is you're actually asking the town to give a permit to somebody to barricade themselves inside their house in a disaster. And that was one of the questions we threw back at FEMA. Who's going to take the liability on that one? You know, our doors don't open the way they do up north. So how do you get out of your house here? You have to open outward. And if you have a flood barrier up 3 feet in front of that door, how are you going to get out of that house when your electric car is on fire in the garage and you can't get out of your house because of the floodwaters? So those are the questions that honestly we asked FEMA just last week for clarification on. You know, you want to take the liability, you want to show us a way to do that correctly, we're more than happy to do anything you want. But up until that point, we didn't have any direction.
So I guess what I want to get at is I want to see if we can get clear direction to our residents who are going through this. So potentially what we're saying is even if you came in and got a permit, or your storm shutter or storm water barrier company came in and got a permit, that you may have spent money on something that FEMA will deem as non-compliant with floodplain regulations?
That is very true at this point.
What about the steak knives?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Can you keep the steak knives?
Well, yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that's on the salesman's part. But, you know, in all reality and in seriousness here, it's a huge thing that you're asking the town. You know, FEMA is actually. Do we want to proceed with this and allow people to barricade themselves in, which they're perceiving as saving their structure or saving themselves from future loss?
Well,
right?
Frank,
Any
not to
of us
interrupt
would
you,
do
but
that.
hopefully people will leave when we ask them to leave so that this isn't an issue. But what I want to get is clear direction to our residents to be able to say, either if you are moving forward with buying something, wait until we get clear direction so you're not wasting your money. And here's if you have bought this and you have received a letter from either FEMA or from the town, what direction should they do? What direction should they take? Obviously, we're doing what we have to do to show that we're following whatever direction we're given, or no direction in this case when it comes to that. But we have to have a message that we give to our residents to be able to say, if you receive this letter, here's what you should do.
And we can definitely get that out through our websites and all that public information and through our PIO. But to Tom's point, you know, until we get that definitive, hey, we're going to draw our line in the sand, this is what you need to do, you know, our direction is kind of up in the air at this point. It's what the town can proceed with.
So our position is, don't do anything until we can definitively tell you you're not wasting your money.
That is correct.
And Mr. Mayor, also, just so you know, we have not, any of the cases that were created through this with our CAV program are on hold until we can get better information from the state and the federal government. So no one is there's nothing being brought from magistrate for any of this. We're not holding anybody's feet to the fire as far as permitting as well. And with the safety issue that we've brought up, that has been an ongoing issue, we're gonna have to wait for clarity with that, and then there's gonna have to be more conversation.
So are we telling our residents who are potentially, I don't know if there are or not any that are potentially coming down the pipeline, to get permits to protect their homes from storm surge, we're not issuing any permits at this point because we'd be in violation of what FEMA deems as dry flood proofing a residential property?
I can speak a little bit to that. On the community development side, I've had talks with my manager, Georgina, in the community development department, and we have talked briefly to staff that if somebody comes and asks such a thing, that they contact either her or I, and we could reach out to those people and expound a little bit more.
So if I could, this seems to dovetail on something that you and I had a public colloquy about a few weeks ago, Frankie, and that was at an M&P meeting to begin to maybe do a seminar, if you will, on what you can and can't do. I've had a litany of condo buildings now. They're trying to be more resilient. They're trying to do the responsible thing. They're willing to expend capital on these flood panels and flood doors. But you know, even before they come to the town, you know, they've got to hire an engineering firm, expend quite a bit of capital to put their proposal together before they come to the town. If we're at a point, and I feel for you because not getting the direction from the feds makes your job extremely difficult. If we could put out some kind of a notice, letting folks know who are working on this to hang on for a bit because we're waiting for the feds to give us clarity, then they could kind of that would positively allow them to sort of impact their plan of attack, because there's a lot of folks out there, and I'm just one council person. I get a lot of questions about this, and I know you're trying to do your best to help these folks, but without that proper guidance, You know, your hands are tied.
Well,
But it is cut and dry. We're
Well,
talking.
condos wouldn't
the
fall
issue
under
here
this,
is
would it?
residential. Condos are commercial, so
Right.
they can,
But
do
there's,
those things.
there's still a lot of questions about what they can and can't do and what's best practices and that kind of a thing.
Makes sense.
That would be
Yes, sir.
really helpful.
Yeah.
And I know you're working on that,
Yes,
but
sir.
that would be great. So that piece of the puzzle, you don't need federal direction on or federal clarity?
No, that's spelled out into not only the Florida Building Code on what we
Okay.
can provide, but also because, you gotta remember, the FEMA regulations have been adopted into the Florida Building Code, which then becomes law.
Okay.
The regulations as themselves, and I don't mean any disrespect to FEMA at all, are regulations. They're out there, they're a guidance to follow, and that it behoove you to do such. But it takes the adaptation through and to codify them under the Florida Building Code that actually gives them teeth to be enforced. And so in the case that you were just brought up, it was residential properties that are affected because they deemed as not necessary to have that, and actually impedes the flow of water. Where in a commercial property, you could have one right next door, and they're allowed to bolt up that thing and make it look like Fort Knox. So there is a little bit of ambiguity as far as the direction that they're taking.
I look forward to it, when the time's appropriate at that M&P to have that
Yes,
with
sir.
the floodplain manager, yourself and others. That'd be great just to, and we can invite all the condo boards to come and
Yes, sir.
participate and any other commercial property owner. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Safford.
So I have one other question to muddy the waters even more. Does it matter what type of residential structure, depending on how it was built, whether it's wood, concrete, block?
So at this time, we're familiar with the term that we toss around a lot, like pre-firm, okay? So
Right.
prior to 1984. Most of those houses that are existing pre-firm structures on this island are cement block. They're single-story homes, cement block homes. So the flood comes through, for the most part, and takes out the windows, the doors, the roof stays intact, or the roof may be replaced, but the structure itself can be rebuilt, engineered to stand that with the proper engineering and whatnot. So if we're looking at like a wooden structure, if you put anything in there to impede wave action or to slow down or to push wave action against that structure, what's going to happen with wood? Wood's going to buckle. You know, as we saw with not only Ian, but the subsequent hurricanes that we had last year, the concrete houses, or if you think back to the three little pig analogy, you know, the ones that were built out of concrete withstood that. They stood tall. Are you telling everybody to build back that way? No, the Florida Build Code allows you to do certain things to achieve the same load, but we don't want to impede that either. So depending on where you're at in the island, depending the age of your structure, depending on what type of your structure, those are all things that take into that calculation that the floodplain manager looks at and derives whether you can or cannot have that.
And whether it's pre-firm or not.
That is correct.
So there's, wow.
Well, I think we're getting kind of into the weeds on the structure of the building. The way I'm understanding it, or what you've told me so far, what I've heard is FEMA disapproves, despite whatever your structure is made out of, on residential homes to apply attached flood mitigation matters.
Yes, sir, at this time, that's
Yes.
correct.
So it doesn't matter what it's built out of. If you're a resident that has a single-family home,
Residential in any manner, correct.
that FEMA, as of right now, is telling us that you cannot mitigate your home from water intrusion.
That is true.
Is that the best way to say it?
Yes, sir.
And that was our contest to them, Mr. Mayor, is that.
I just want to make sure it's
Yeah.
very clear to the residents listening out there that they understand how the town is moving forward based on the direction that we've been given.
Yes, sir.
I think we made it pretty clear there.
I hope so. But this is, as you said, the muddy waters, as Councilor Safford, this is something that has come case to case, and we ask for clarification so we can be more clear with our residents and give out direction so they don't continue to buy very expensive items for their house if it's not gonna fit within the FEMA standard regulation. So we're moving forward, we're waiting for that direction, and we were promised that FDEM was moving forward on that, because it's not a Fort Myers Beach issue. This is a East Coast, United States issue across the entire East Coast.
I want to reiterate our message is very clear. At this point, the town of Fort Myers Beach's stance is that you're not allowed to put water mitigation, what word am I looking for? Precautions.
Barriers and.
Barriers
flood
in
barriers,
place at this
yes.
time,
Yeah.
as per the direction
That's how we understand the
Okay.
regulation at this time.
Clear can be. Until we hear any different, that's going to be our stance.
Yes, sir.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you, guys. Unless you had,
A question for Will.
Oh, go ahead.
Different subject.
Yeah.
Mr. Town Manager, a week or so ago, maybe it was longer, the mayor appropriately released some information about funds that were directed to Fort Myers Beach from the federal government. And I understand the town has put forth a records request to the Lee County School District. I've not seen the records request. Could you describe the records request and also give us a status update as to where we are with them in terms of getting that information?
Yes, Mr. Vice Mayor, the town requested any and all records related to the school district's requests for FEMA funding for Fort Myers Beach Elementary School. That would be project submissions, the scope, how much funding they were looking for, what work they wanted to do to originally, after the original storm, to renovate and rebuild the Fort Myers Beach Elementary School. We asked for any project worksheets that they submitted to FEMA for said projects. We asked for any documents related to the award of those requested projects, the grant funding, the insurance funding, et cetera, related to any of those requested projects. And then additionally, we asked for, if the school district did request to use those funds, divert those funds for other projects, did FEMA approve that? We had a copy of that request and a copy of FEMA's approval to those requests. I did yesterday, Amy forwarded to me late yesterday a response from the school district. I haven't had a chance to go through all of the responses to see if they did answer all of those questions or not. I will have an answer for you as soon as I can get a chance to review those submissions, or their response.
I appreciate that, Will. I know that you and the deputy town manager are having regular regular meetings with with Dr. Carlin's team. Has this come up since? Has this issue come up? Have you had a meeting since this issue's come up? If so, what was the result of that meeting? And if not, when is your next meeting with their team?
I have not had a meeting since this recent issue has come up, Mr. Vice Mayor, and we're working to schedule another meeting within 2 weeks from now. We've been meeting about once a month, more frequently if possible, but that's usually about the frequency of our meetings. We'll schedule one within the next couple of weeks to discuss.
Thank you. Push the button.
town attorney items.
So, council, on your agenda, you do have an executive session regarding the Town of Fort Myers Beach versus White Sand Properties of Fort Myers Beach LLC and FGC Associates LLC. In your agenda materials, we did say that the presence of the court reporter would be announced, her name would be announced prior to the commencement of the executive session. I found out in the past hour or so that there is a little scheduling mix-up. So we do not have a court reporter available at this time, so we will need to reschedule this.
Okay. Do you have any suggestions?
At this time, no. The statute does require me to make the announcement and the request for a date.
Okay.
There is, this, I can publicly discuss and advise you or remind you that this particular piece of litigation is involving 2 code enforcement liens. There is another code enforcement lien that was scheduled for review by our special magistrate tomorrow. Due to some unforeseen medical issues, that hearing is also going to be rescheduled. I think we're working on a date, but as you can see, there is somewhat of a relationship between the executive session and that other lien.
Okay. So what do you have to read?
So there's no date at this time. We'll come back to you with an announcement of an executive session and then scheduling it.
Okay. So you don't have to read any of this then?
No.
Okay. So our 1 o'clock executive session is no longer happening.
12 o'clock.
Or 12
Correct.
o'clock?
Our 12 o'clock is not happening today, correct?
Okay. All right. Is that all you have?
That is it.
Okay. Council members, items, and reports. Counselor Safford.
I'm good, thank you.
Counselor Woodson.
I have nothing.
Vice Mayor Adderholt.
Everything's been covered, thank you.
Counselor King.
I'm going to expand a little bit and just take some time. And thank you all today for your support for what Karen and I have been going through for the last 4 months. I've tried to take the high road very often when people have told lies about me, and then basically circumvented a state law by going against the spirit of that law. I'm kind of tired of it, and I will be putting out a very vigorous fight, both legally and hitting the streets to show folks that this is just a bunch of lies. We have the proof. They've gone out there and sent out emails about this being about Seagate. I've challenged the media to hold these folks accountable. They have no proof. As a matter of fact, they've gone to the courts to not have to file for proof, not have to show it. They've won a protective order against showing that proof, and that's a sad state of affairs. So just thank you so much for your support today. I appreciate it.
All right. Just since you brought it up, Vice Mayor, the school, I want to, for the record, the information that I released via social media post concerning the school was not an intent to say they did anything wrong or a gotcha moment or anything. It was my understanding that there was, at least in all the discussions, and maybe Vice Mayor, you know more than I do, being involved in the ad hoc committee, that there was no FEMA coming. There was no FEMA money coming. So, like has happened many, many times from Representative Donald's office, whenever there's been a notification of grant funding coming through the FEMA requests, they have sent us a notification saying, you're going to be getting this today, and it's always been accurate. So when that was sent to us from his office, I had no reason to not believe that it wasn't true. And I don't think at this point the school board has denied that it wasn't true. But I took it at the time as, this is money that we didn't know. Maybe they didn't know about it, and it was an excitement. I thought maybe this was the end of all the issues with the town of Fort Myers Beach School, that there's going to be funding available. That was the entire intent of putting that information out there. And that information was sent to both myself and Chair Fisher, so it wasn't like it came just to me. It went to both the school board chair as well. And again, it was not an intent they did anything wrong, not claiming they did anything wrong. But there are some answered questions that I think, and maybe they're in the documentation, Will, that you've now received. I did not receive any response back to the 6 or 7 questions that I directly asked of the school superintendent and the school board as to the same sense of questions that the town asked for public information requests on. Hopefully, everything is on the up and up, but to me, it doesn't change the fact that morally, it's disgusting that you used a school that was devastated from a massive hurricane. Either you did it intentionally to raise funds to do something else. And I know there's been back and forth about, well, we did rebuild the school and it did cost this much. Okay, but the numbers still don't add up. And that's all we're seeking is if you use the money somewhere else and it was appropriated and it was done accordingly to all the dots and I's and T's and all the things you have to do to be able to do it, so be it. But it doesn't change the fact that you used that funding that you requested specifically for a school that was devastated to use on other projects. And you've left these kids hanging. And I implore them, if they're listening, and hopefully they'll hear this, those kids and those parents deserve a decision, one way or another. We've tried to work with you. We've got an interlocal agreement in place. We are standing by that. We have stood by it. We have held up our end of the deal. You have publicly stated that you want to hold up your end of the deal in your posts, and that's all we're asking you to do. We've shown you that we can drive enrollment up. We've shown you that we can do what we say we're going to do. We're just asking you to admit, or not admit, but agree to or uphold what you have already agreed to do. But at the end of the day, it comes down to just making a decision. We sit here up here, just like you guys do, and our job is to give direction to staff. And that's what I'm asking that board to do, is give direction to your staff to uphold the agreement that you've already signed and give these kids a home to come back to. With that, if there's nothing else,
Move to adjourn.
got a motion to adjourn? Any objection?
I second.
We are adjourned at 12:15.